Kind of commitment you deserve.
Estimated annual bill €1,736. Average consumption, urban 24-hour, discounted unit rate, standing charge, PSO levy and carbon tax. Residential, dual fuel, direct debit and online billing. Terms and conditions apply. See electricireland.ie/EAB. Rates at 1st of April 2019, subject to change.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.
Yeah, very good morning to you. Welcome along this Monday morning, and what a Monday morning it is after one of the big weekends of Irish sport. Kerry are through to play Dublin in the All-Ireland football final. It'll be their bid to try and stop the first 5 in a row in, proper Gaelic football, as opposed to the under-20s Gaelic football, or the minor Gaelic football that
Get it right.
was talking about. Owen, how are you?
Good, how are you?
You're in combative form this morning, Owen.
Like this day last week, when you were talking about this going to be the best weekend of Gaelic football ever, do you think that you over-exaggerated it a little bit?
No, I said since 2010.
Since 2010?
Yeah.
And did it live up to your expectations?
It was pretty good. It was fairly sensational. The Saturday was like, we witnessed greatness. Sunday game was a bit drab.
Yeah,
like
32,000 people in a stadium for an All-Ireland semi-final is bad.
Yeah.
Very bad.
You said the Kerry fans were going to travel. They obviously didn't.
Was there more Kerry or Tyrone fans there?
I mean, did the Kerry fans travel in great numbers? No, they didn't.
Not amazing numbers.
What a battery there, Owen.
Yeah, there was still probably a better showing for them than Tyrone fans, to be honest.
Okay, so what about Tyrone, Grant? Why didn't everybody show up? What do you think?
It's quite expensive to go to All-Ireland semi-finals, I think, 50 quid a ticket. Kieran Cunningham made the point on Twitter yesterday that we thought that the ticket prices sag at the start of the year, which is going to be like a 1 week thing, but actually this is part of the knock-on impact for that. It would have probably tipped 40,000.
But there was 82,000 the game the day before. And
Mayo, that's because Mayo people are insane, and they're the best supporters that have ever graced Irish sport in terms of their dedication to their team, and also because it's Dublin as well. That makes a huge difference. Also because of the fact that there is a belief that what you're watching in front of you is the two teams who can potentially win the All-Ireland. Now that comes from the insanity of the Mayo fans as well, in hindsight, that they actually believe that. But perhaps there is a situation on Sunday where Tyrone fans don't actually believe they're going to win the All-Ireland, and maybe even something similar from the Kerry fans. Who knows? Right,
so that's probably more like it than... Because it is an All-Ireland semi-final. Granted, what was the price increase from what to what? How much did it go up?
I don't know. I get in on season tickets, so I don't pay the actual full price, but it's obviously up to €50 now. Was it 40, 45 last year? I'm not sure. It was the €5 increase was the thing, wasn't it? So, granted, not a big leap, but it's still...
it's part of it, right? But I think actually far more part of it is the fact that no one believes they're going to win.
I think it's, 2-pronged thought. To be honest with you, a typical Kerry man, I was sitting in the stadium kind of mourning the death of Gaelic football at half-time yesterday, saying this is terrible, this is awful, 33,000 people. The best thing that kind of happened was like a traditional cover of Faithless by Insomnia at half-time. I was like, that's the best thing we've seen all day.
Yeah, so this is from Irish Seven Summits, has some stats on Twitter saying these are the lowest football semi-final crowds in Croke Park. 2019, 34,000, 2018, 49, 2017, 53, and then are there other low ones? 2007, 38,
I presume we're waiting on 4 because he mentions Kerry at the bottom.
And 2004 is 35, so the only ones in their 30s. Well, there's no 7 in the 30s as well, which... 96 was the last time it was lower. Who was in it? Kerry Mayo in 96. Jeez, the Mayo fans didn't travel in 96.
Yeah, it's kind of like, that's a weird one, isn't it? You would have thought that they would, but...
maybe that was the start of it.
Probably.
Yeah, look, I think the empty stadium is a real issue.
Yeah,
when
it's
the
a massive
stadium
issue.
Full completely transforms the quality of the experience for everybody.
Yeah, you were there on Saturday night as well, I heard. It's an amazing thing with 82,000 people in the stadium when the parade is happening, when things are about to happen. And
it's class.
It's the fullness of the stadium.
Warm-ups are class.
Yeah, it's the fullness of the stadium, not just the 82,300 people in the stadium. So,
is there a possibility that fed into how bad Kerry were in the first half?
No, I think Kerry were bad in the first half because they played right into Tyrone's hands.
But they were pedestrian, they didn't...
Very pedestrian.
Yeah.
And sloppy.
It did feel a little bit like, well, this probably isn't an All-Ireland semi-final because there's nobody here.
Yeah, it really felt. It felt like when the league semi-finals used to be played in Croke Park, when there used to be league semi-finals. That's kind of what it felt like in Croke Park yesterday afternoon for the first half. But then, to be fair, in the second half, when it comes to life, there was kind of like a raucous atmosphere, and as much as however many thousand Kerry fans travelled, however much noise they could possibly make was made at that point, especially after Stephen O'Brien's goal. I've only almost fainted at 2 GA games ever. The first time was when David Clifford scored that goal in Clonus last year, and the second was when Stephen O'Brien scored that goal yesterday.
You nearly fainted?
Nearly fainted.
Really?
Yeah.
Like, literally?
Yeah.
How come?
Because I went absolutely apeshit. So I was so unbelievably happy because of, as I say, the being down in the doldrums at half-time, thinking this is so bad. This is like kind of a no-show, and it doesn't even feel like an All-Ireland semi-final. At least if you're going to lose an All-Ireland semi-final, at least make it feel like it's a bit of an occasion. So from the lows of that to, hold on a minute, we're back in this.
When you think about how Kerry started the game against Mayo in Killarney with the fight in the throw-up, and then that whole first half, there was none of that, really.
Yeah.
None at all. No sense of like, actually we can be involved in a fight here. Everything was kind of behind, and I don't know. And then, so what's the transformation down to?
Like on a tactical level, and we'll get into this with Anthony Moyles, I haven't watched the full game back, but it seemed to me that there was more direct running from Kerry, more powerful running from Kerry, rather than the ponderous short hand passing around the 45-metre line, which Tyrone loved to absorb. It's kind of, like, you kind of felt that, you know, when the game that we always talk about from a Dublin perspective, the 2017 semi-final against Tyrone, it was almost as if Kerry did yesterday what Tyrone were planning for Dublin to do in 2017, as in just kind of try and pass around the 45-metre line, don't actually have much powerful running. But like in the second half, when you have the likes of Jack Sherwood coming off the bench, who was brilliant, and then you also have the direct option of Tommy Walsh off the bench as well, who was also brilliant, then you suddenly have a much better plan A and a very, very good plan B as well.
But it did feel like physically they were willing to put it up to Tyrone in the second half in a way that they were incapable of or had forgotten to do in the first half.
It really seemed that way. I just can't put my finger on why that was. Here's also like a really small thing as well. I'm always kind of terrified when Kerry come out first in the second half, because the team that always waits in the dressing room has something to do. Like, Kerry made 2 half-time substitutions yesterday, and they came out first. If I'm a manager who's making, or there's actually only 1 half-time substitution, if I'm ever making a change as a manager at half-time, I would make sure that my team is the second team coming out into the pitch, because you can be sure that in that 3-minute interval, there's somebody in Tyrone saying, right, okay, that's the switch, let's get into Mickey Hart and tell the boys you've got a couple of minutes there to actually make your plan as to what that is. Come out second and actually make the half-time change count.
There you go.
And catch them off guard. That's a small deal.
Turns out it wasn't important.
It turns out like not overly important in the end, but yeah, it was great. It was absolutely fantastic. I'm not going to lie, it was an absolutely brilliant feeling, and it does feel that is an achievement in itself, getting to an All-Ireland final this year, trying to move beyond the rest of the chasing pack a little bit. I think you can make an argument that perhaps they aren't definitively the second best team in the country, but I do think they'll give Dublin the best game possible.
If you don't have Kerry number 2 in your power rankings, when the power rankings are done this week, there will be war.
Oh, in my power rankings, of course they'll be number 2, no question about that. But I'm saying maybe my bias is coming through here. Maybe people can make an argument that they actually aren't the second best team. I think they are, and I think they will give the Dubs a game in the final.
I don't think there's any argument anymore for Mayo after what happened on Saturday. And certainly the most recent bit of evidence is that Tyrone haven't really progressed from last year.
Completely. Like, I know hindsight is everything here, and I didn't expect to be saying this last week, but Donegal would have been the better semi-final on Saturday night. Mayo fully deserved to be there after what they did to them in Castlebar, but I just think that perhaps Dublin had seen this one before. They knew exactly what to do when they were in that situation in the second half. And maybe if you, I don't know, maybe even the simple thing of Donegal's kick-out strategy being so effective, or somebody like Michael Murphy to put the team on the back, maybe that was the game for a Michael Murphy to step up or something. It just felt that, God, all the hopes I had, they wouldn't have beaten them. They wouldn't have beaten them.
No, I don't think
I felt that we wouldn't have got the drubbing that we got. Now, the thing about it is, I've never seen as good a 12-minute performance as in Croke Park ever, as we witnessed in that third quarter from Dublin on Saturday. It was absolutely terrifying. There was always this prospect that something like this could happen to a Mayo or a Kerry against Dublin. Like, I know we were kind of in a disagreement as to whether or not they've actually done that to them before, but this is conclusively their most complete patch of a performance against one of the other 3 or 4 teams in and around there. So it was unbelievable. It's astonishing. They're not going to be, I don't think they'll be stopped in this year's All-Ireland final. Hopefully we get a game. They are a truly special team. There's no question about that.
It was such and it's been such a weird year where Dublin's start in games has not been great. All other games, the start hasn't been the big games, right? So the Meath played them really well for a half. Now, Mayo did the same, I think, and I don't think there's that much of a gap between. I think the gap from Meath to Mayo is a smaller gap than the gap from Mayo to Dublin.
Yeah.
At this stage, and everybody's like, "Oh, the Meath game doesn't really matter," because they weren't really up for it. But actually, it's just how they play. It's like find a rhythm, find a stride, see what the opposition is doing, learn from that, and then okay, now we know everything that we need to know, and we're ready to go. That's what it felt like. It was surgical in its precision. And the other thing that happened was Fenton just decided, okay, sorry about that, lads. I wasn't at my very best in the first half, but now I realise I'm possibly the greatest footballer of all time, and certainly I'm the most dominant footballer of my generation, and I'm going to win this game. Like, immediately Colin was man of the match, and we were having a conversation about it, and somebody was like, I'm not sure about that. And I was like, oh, come on. He scores the 2 goals that absolutely win the game. Then I watched the game back, and actually Fenton's performance is one of the greatest performances in that second half that I've ever seen. Like, he is a colossus.
I thought Niall Scully should have been man of the match.
I mean, Brian Howard had a case.
I thought it was cheap giving it to Conor Callaghan, and I completely see why, because ultimately you put the ball in the back of the net, you win the game for your team. But I felt Fenton and Scully and Howard, as you mentioned as well, that middle third is absolutely out of this world. We'll never see anything like it again. And I know you hate momentum. I know you hate this phrase momentum, but once Dublin have a sniff of momentum, however tenuous you may, or nebulous you think that may be, like, it's game over for you. It's absolutely game over for you. There is nothing you can do to stop that train.
Well, you certainly need to do something to stop what's happening.
Maybe go down with an injury or something.
Several injuries, like was it one of the Kerry lads suddenly had a head injury yesterday at a hilarious point of the game, where like he'd got a belt in the stomach, and one of his teammates comes over and kind of pushes him down and goes head injury. I'm like, come on.
I didn't see it. That was obviously caught on television. I didn't Kerry played the game in that second half. Weirdly, a mirror image of what Tyrone did in the first half. I'm not sure about you.
Good diving. There was a brilliant free one by Sean O'Shea. Was it Sean O'Shea who grabbed his Tyrone marker's arm, dived full length, pulled him over, and won a free? And the Tyrone guy's like, he was pulling me.
Yeah, that was not a free. I'm not sure that he he definitely.
He literally pulls his arm.
Yeah, no, I saw. Like, even there, we were saying to each other that was no free whatsoever. And I think it was that the ref was actually making up for a decision at the other end.
I did think of you tweeting the other day about Tyrone diving, and John Fogarty pointing out. You were saying it on the show, and John Fogarty went, "Hang on, Kerry pretty good at that as well." And it turned out they were excellent at it.
Yeah,
all the dark arts Kerry had on display.
Yeah, they are starting to get good in that respect. I still think that they are missing a little bit of that edge. I think they need to go to another level again if they have any prayer of being in a contest on September the 1st.
John Duggan, good morning to you.
Gerard, Owen, how are we?
Welcome.
Thank you.
A Dublin Kerry final to end the 5 in a row, or to win the 5 in a row?
Well, it's very historic. In the 135 years of the association, they are the 2 aristocrats of the game. It's funny that Dublin didn't beat Kerry for 34 years in the championship, 77 to 2011, and since then it's been the other way around. They've had some great semi-finals, and now the prospect of a final to really whet the appetite for every neutral, and it'll be historic whichever way it goes.
Yeah, will it whet the appetite though? Because people are a little bit concerned about the fact that Dublin are so dominant at this stage that not even Kerry. I mean, that first half, at the end of that first half yesterday, you were like,
will Kerry fear Dublin?
Well, maybe they should, is the thing.
Well, here's the thing. Like, I mean, that I think that's such an important point, John, because I do, like, it's not something you can measure, but I do think there has been an element of fear with a lot of teams when they see Dublin come up against them. Is like Paul Ganey sitting down this morning and thinking about Paul Manny and thinking to himself, he's better than me? Is David Moran thinking about Brian Fenton saying, he's better than me? Is Paul Murphy saying, John Small, he's better than me? Not a chance. There is a kind of a deserved arrogance about this team that they can look at the best team I've ever seen play football and actually say on a man-to-man basis, we're as good as them. Perhaps Jack McCaffrey is the one thing that they actually can't replicate, or the edge in that full back line. And then, of course, you've got Stephen Cluxton. So I pretty much... Fenton's
head and shoulders the best midfielder in the country.
Is he head and shoulders better than David Moran?
He is, yeah.
Considerably better than David Moran.
He is.
I disagree. He's better than David Moran. He's better than David Moran. But to say that he's considerably better than David Moran, I think, is just not right.
Well, sure, I guess we'll get the opportunity in 3 weeks' time to see which of them dominates the game.
Well, okay. So, like, we can judge it on that one moment, and to be fair, that's where it should be judged. But the two best midfield performances we've seen this year were Brian Fenton last Saturday night and David Moran in Killarney up against Mayo. They were both against Mayo. They were against the same opposition. Kerry beat them by pretty much the same amount of points, I think. Both teams were at home. This is a fairly sort of fair level playing field, and I think to say that Brian Fenton is far better than David Moran
Fenton's the reigning footballer of the year, so he's put that body of work together where he has been that dominant and that outstanding and better than every other footballer in the country over the last...
Never lost a championship match.
18 months. So
But like the never losing a championship match really is irrelevant in this discussion.
David Warren's a great player. Absolutely, he's a great player. But I think that actually, if you are going to go man for man between the two teams, then the Dubs are going to win. It'll be 10-5 or 12-3 at the end of that. If you're being kind of fairly straightforward about it.
I disagree. I think that if you're going man for man, especially, so I don't know how you would ever we will never know the answer to this question, but it's an interesting debate to have. If you have like a man on man, say you put I don't know, Philly McMahon up against David Clifford for one day, and then you do the same with the Kerry backs. The Dublin forward will get the Kerry back, the Kerry forward will get the Dublin back, and then maybe you'll have like an 8-7 win to Dublin, maybe a 9-6 win to Dublin. That is how close I think it is on a man to man. The problem is this team, and this is where the unbeaten thing comes into it, that solidifies their mentality so long without it getting beaten. 5 years since they got beaten by a team in the championship. It's an incredible run. They have this down to a T, and they don't do panic. That is where the gap is here. That is why there's a 5-point spread in this game, not because of the individual matchups.
Yeah, they've been close matches in the last few years, Dublin-Kerry. Like, it was, 7 points in 13, I think it was. Then 3 points in the final 15, 2 points in 2016. So Kerry won't have any issues with their legs, but they can't play the way they played in the first half yesterday. Like, Tyrone were far better. And if Tyrone had a killer instinct, which they don't, it could have been a completely different story. So that's how I'd worry for Kerry. It's going to be a traditional match. I can't see too much tactics in this. I can just see it being two teams going out and playing football, and I think that'll work actually in Dublin's favour, because Dublin just have that arsenal in the team. And if Jack McCarthy has a quiet game, as he did on Saturday, somebody else can step up, like Brian Fenton or like Paul Mannion, who I thought was excellent.
Kerry have won 37 All-Ireland titles, and Dublin have 28. How long would it take Dublin to close the gap?
20 years, I think. Maybe even shorter. I suppose it is 9 All-Irelands. You've got to win half of them and hope Kerry don't win that many in the other half.
It's probably a quarter of a century, yes, probably a quarter of a century. But I know I'm a Dublin fan. It's a big deal. This is a big deal. This match, this 5 in a row game, and it really is like history, the hand of history.
Knocking around town on Saturday night, though, it felt like the Dubs fans were celebrating that was it, really. That once the team was going to perform at that level and find form in a big game, because that was the only thing that we hadn't seen them do. We hadn't seen them play a big game yet. And once you know they are going to find form playing a big game, it seemed like a lot of Dublin fans were like, well, that's it. Now that's it. That's fine. Nothing can stop us now, because we're going to find form in the All-Ireland final no matter who we're playing.
I know injuries as well.
And we beat the pick of those two anyway.
Yeah. I don't have that utter cocksure attitude about it. I just want to see it done now, because I know Kilkenny in 2009 just got squeezed past Tip in a great match, and then the next year they faltered. But
their best player had a cruciate.
Yeah. So
their talisman, and then had to go off, and
then our corporate went bananas. So in a great way, scored a hat-trick. So we're not seeing the trends. As somebody said to me, Mayo will put it up to Dublin and be close. No, I said Dublin will beat them by 6 points, and they beat them by 10. So it just seems to me that logic would just suggest that Dublin are going to win comfortably by 6 or 7 points, and it's predictable. It's disappointing that it might be predictable, but the only thing about it is amateur sport, and there's always more of a chance in amateur sport than there is in professional sport. But
will the 5 in a row talk matter? I mean, it's going to reach it's 3 weeks of the same conversation. 5 in a row, 5 in a row, 5 in a row, 5 in a row, 5 in a row. Like, what can Jim Gavin or anybody do to stop that? Nothing.
No, but every time Dublin been tested in the last few years, they've come through. Every time they've been tested, against Mayo in 15, against Mayo in 16, against Mayo in 17, especially against Kerry in some of those semi-finals. Every time they've been tested, they've been able to find an answer, and I think they'll find the answer again. But these are amateur players, and it is surely human to expect it to seep into their minds in some way. And if it's a tight game, I mean, I remember even it was the Donegal game that Dublin actually did panic in the second half, but that is 5 years ago. So, look, I just hope we have a great game, and I just hope it is close.
No, you don't. You hope that Dublin win by 10 points.
Yeah, no. But, it's funny. Could this be the reverse of, a decade on? Could this be the reverse of the Startled Earwigs game when it was Kerry by 17 points? Dublin have never really
17.
The last time Kerry beat Dublin in championship,
really probably since the 77 semi-final, Dublin haven't really done Kerry in really hammered them. They pulled away in 2013, but it's never been. I suppose that's the only reason I have a little bit of caution, because Kerry have it in their DNA. They have it in their DNA that they don't fear anybody, and they're Kerry football, and they play football the great way, and the most successful team. But it would be interesting. It would be probably the culmination of Dublin's dominance if they did murder Kerry in the final.
All right, and that's a live possibility as things stand this morning. Let's wait and see exactly, make sure everybody gets through training over the next while. Here's what's coming up. The sports page is coming your way. We've got Dublin versus Kerry analysis and reaction with Anthony Moyles. As ever, you can tweet us in the hashtag OTBAM. Later on, Stephen Kelly's going to join us to talk to us about the opening weekend. What an opening weekend it was in the Premier League as well. Some very familiar storylines and some brand new ones to parse with him. Cian Lynch is going to join us in studio after 9. We're a week out from the All-Ireland Hurling final at this stage as well. A little bit overshadowed by the football at this point too, and then sport news coming your way around about 9:15. As ever, you can get involved with all the conversations by using the hashtag OTBAM, or of course you can just leave a comment under whatever stream you're watching us on. We're also live on OTB Sports Radio. Back after this.
Join Off the Ball in Abu Dhabi this November 17th to 23rd for the inaugural Off the Ball Open. With flights from Dublin, 5 nights in a 4-star hotel, golf on 2 championship courses, gala awards dinner, Peter Lorry golf clinic, and a live Off the Ball roadshow. You can also hang out with some special guests, including Kevin Kilban and Kieran Donaghy. The inaugural Off the Ball Open. Book now at CassidyTravel.ie and check out offtheball.com.
Newspapers this morning, the London Times, Lampard left stunned by Jose attack. Frank Lampard hit back at Jose Mourinho for criticising his Chelsea players for their performance in the 4-0 defeat away to Manchester United yesterday. Mourinho, who had 2 spells in charge of Chelsea and one at United, was working as a studio pundit for Sky and questioned Lampard's team selection, claiming that Chelsea lacked internationals and big players. A little bit of experience would fit well with the team. You look to the performance of Mason Mount, the performance of Tammy Abraham, you look at the performance even of Christensen, and for matches of this dimension, you need a little bit more. Is he wrong? I mean, N'Golo Kante was on the bench.
Like, it's interesting watching Jose yesterday. Decent start, as you'd expect from him on Sky. Also kind of saying that, you know, Harry Maguire and his capabilities of a less left-sided central defender are going to be called into question because, you know, at left-back you've got Luke Shaw. I think there'll be lots of not-so-veiled digs from Jose Mourinho throughout the season.
Is he signed up for the season? I wasn't sure. Or was it just a one-off?
No, signed up for the season.
Oh, right.
Yeah, well, I was watching Sky Sports News on Saturday morning and it was like Jose signs for Sky Sports. So
okay.
I don't think it's a one-game loan spell somehow. I think we're going to see a little bit more of him.
Well, that's much better, right? That's exactly what he should be doing.
As in...
he's a brilliant communicator.
Yeah.
He's got a nasty streak to him where he's going to try and settle scores. And he's nowhere near as good as he needs to be a football manager anymore.
And Graham Souness will still probably be the star in the Sky Sports studio.
I mean, I still think Roy Keane's out there. Just add him to the mix.
Yeah, Roy and Jose. You'd watch the Roy and Jose show.
I would watch Burnley versus Palace on a Monday night if the 2 lads were the studio guys.
Yeah, like the dream team.
I hadn't noticed this before, so maybe they've been doing it all the time, but Carragher and Neville were both co-com.
I haven't noticed that either.
But that's the first time?
Usually one's in the studio, yeah, and the other one would be in the gantry.
Yeah, it definitely felt like, so obviously I was watching the Kerry game, but flicking back and forth, you were like, they seem to do it too. Okay, that's interesting.
And how did that go?
Well, again, I was only watching for a second, and it seemed totally fine. Like, it's not complicated. It's just so long as the egos are massaged enough, it looked like a good idea.
Back page of the Irish Independent this morning is Day of Destiny awaits. It's a picture of Stephen O'Brien celebrating his goal yesterday. Kerry in with a shout of stopping the drive for 5 after O'Brien leads stunning comeback. You've got risk and reward football. Sees United begin season with a bang. It's Anthony Martial and Marcus Rashford celebrating there. John Milan is building the build up to the hurling final. Unfinished business for Sheedy, leaves Tip on the brink, and Carberry left facing anxious wait. It is the reason why we're talking about Saturday, really. The warm-up games don't matter that much, and you won't remember Dave Carney scoring a try, but we will remember the mini heart attack we're all getting now because of Joey Carberry and the level of his performance and then the subsequent injury. But it's not as bad as I would have thought initially. Once word was kind of filtering through that this had just happened, you're like, oh my God.
The news of Croker was like...
Yeah, this is bad.
Yeah. Then Joe Schmidt came out and said, we're just going to wait for the swelling to go down. It doesn't look like he's going to miss the World Cup, he said. Which is, you know, a bit of a...
When you're actually talking in those terms, it's pretty scary.
Yeah, I mean, because I just assumed that it had been badly... Anyway, so fingers crossed. We'll bring you those medical dispatches as soon as we possibly can. Dream Dubs final is the back of the Herald, obviously. All set up for an epic decider. Paul Curran, this was a demolition job, and only Kerry can stop Gavin's 5 in a row chasers. Maguire, dream start for United, and that's obviously an incredible start for Manchester United, but were they a little bit flattered? We'll ask Stephen Kelly that a little bit later on.
Let's have a look at the Irish Times this morning. This is the front of their sports section. Kingdom coming to dethrone, says Malachy Clerkin at Croke Park. Keenside will be looking to stop Dublin, winning 5 in a row. Solskjaer salutes United's new boys. Meanwhile, this is Jamie Jackson at Old Trafford. Manager heaps praise on Wan-Bissaka, Maguire and James. And cult continue as World Cup squad is whittled down. More players to be pruned from 43-man squad prior to training camp in Portugal, writes Jerry Thornley.
Final jeopardy. Kerry's goal hero O'Brien battles to avoid All-Ireland ban. That's kind of the main story on the front of the Examiner this morning. End of the road, Galway Miners end Kerry's 34-game unbeaten run to secure a date with Cork. And when it comes to Mayo football, which is more important, love or truth? And then lamps to the slaughter. Top of the morning to you.
Very good.
Lamps to the slaughter. Ole steering fresh course as Blues routed. It is one of those things that everybody knows. Like Stephen O'Brien knows that if he commits that foul, and it's a rugby tackle, so it's a clear black card, that there's a risk of him going to miss the All-Ireland final. I mean,
sorry, go on.
Brian Gavin's right in that he thinks that, like, everybody knows what the rules are. If you do it 3 times over the course of the season, then you deserve to miss a game. You have to treat the All-Ireland final the same as every other game. There can't be an amnesty for it. I'm just not sure. I think that maybe after an All-Ireland quarter-final or something, after the Super 8s, there could be an amnesty, so that if you do it in 2 games, if you do it in maybe, I don't know, because there is no All-Ireland quarter-final, so maybe before the Super 8s you start again, and if you do it twice from then on, is that enough?
Maybe. Like, to be honest with you, I actually kind of go along with what Brian Gavin's saying. The problem is he hasn't done it 3 times. He didn't do that yesterday 2 other times, like the one against Meath and Navan. Just wasn't really a black card, and that's the one they'll be targeting. There's no question he deserved to get black carded yesterday, and I guess there does need to be some sort of punishment, but it's a bit of a disgrace if he doesn't get off this after the black card in Navan, because it was just an incorrect call. It's as simple as that. Like, we had Mickey Hart, funnily enough, talking about it last week with regards to Peter Hart, that it would be such a shame if he'd got one more black card and were Tyrone to win for him to miss an All-Ireland final, but I guess he's not worried about that this morning.
He would have had to play yesterday. I mean, he would have had to emerge from the pocket of whichever Kerry defender he was in over the course of the game. Really disappointing performance from Peter Hart, because he's one of the guys who has to lead that team, and they just couldn't do it.
Yeah, well, that second half performance was absolutely horrendous. It's like, as I say, I need to kind of watch the full thing back to kind of get a full sense. It'll be interesting to see what Anthony has to say in a little while, but it was just a complete flipping of the script, and ultimately if Tyrone had Kerry's forwards, they might have been out of sight in the first half, and unfortunately all they have is one forward who can do that sort of damage. Donnelly as well, to a certain extent. To be honest with you, if I was walking out of Croke Park yesterday and I saw Cathal McShane getting interviewed as man of the match, I would have been like, fair enough. Because
even after they got beaten,
I would be like, fair enough. I thought he was arguably the best player on show yesterday on terms of that single performance alone yesterday. But
he was really good, and like if Hart gets up and gets a second hand to the cross goal, like that was a chance. That that would only have equalised.
I think so.
But it would have been interesting, a shot in the arm for your momentum.
100%. Would have been interesting. That would have been the final nail in the coffin, actually, rather than a shot in the arm, I think. Back page of the Irish Daily Star is I'll be black. Kingdom's hero O'Brien hopes to win ban appeal, and Ole's risk rewarded by Manchester United. Jeremy Cross reporting their 4-0 win against Chelsea yesterday. And then one of the other storylines, as you can imagine, no surprise whatsoever, that VAR dominating a few of the headlines this morning. Cody's fury at VAR. So Wolves skipper Conor Cody basically saying we'll have to play football without our arms anymore if we're going to have decisions like this. Wolves, of course, had a goal ruled out after, I think it was Den Donker handled the ball. But they've made this rule now that even if it is accidental, it doesn't matter, goals are going to be ruled out.
The Daily Mirror's back page headline is feeling good, and that's Solskjaer hails his team's cavalier style and insists United glory days are back after opening game rout of Chelsea, and then also beating Black and Blues. There you go. It's because the black card and then the Blues of Dublin. So, and then Boss Joe and squad fear end of world. Joe Schmidt is already dreading having to make the final cut for Japan, and confesses he still has numerous selection issues to work out. I don't fancy it any day, to be honest. Probably 4 years ago it was one of the most difficult tasks I'd ever really put my mind to, because I know that team and how much the players want to get to the World Cup. It's for Ireland probably more than some other teams where we need to perform. This year, from the very start of the year, that has had to be the target. I think I could probably name certainly 20, maybe a few more. So the next call is coming fairly soon, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, it's going to happen this week, you'd imagine. Back page of The Sun is sob story. Kerry goal hero O'Brien to appeal his final ban, and Ole Gunnar Solskjaer quoted there saying that this is just the start for his young Manchester United side.
So the back page of The Guardian is Fab 4 for United. Rashford puts Chelsea to sword as Solskjaer praises new signings. Certainly, if you want to get a season off to a good start, a 4-0 win against a good Chelsea side, or maybe, I don't know, we'll see how good they are as the season goes on, but certainly Solskjaer is buying himself a little bit of time.
For sure. Back page of the Irish Daily Mail is final hurrah, but O'Brien faces anxious wait. Tommy Walsh there pictured in pretty good form yesterday, and Schmidt considers making more squad cuts, as we've been saying.
The front page of the Racing Post this morning is Roman Conquest, and Romanised strikes for Lee and Condon in Group 1, Jacques Lemarois from Deauville, and then Curragh Chief vows to reconnect with racegoers. So obviously the new chief executive at the Curragh is in. Pat Keogh has vowed to re-engage with disenfranchised racegoers and admitted that adjustments at the track for his first meeting in charge of the Group 1 Keeneland Phoenix Stakes were one step on a long road. So we wish him all the best.
And finally for me, the Daily Telegraph sports section leads with cheeky devils. It's Anthony Martial and Marcus Rashford celebrating yesterday. United's high-risk strategy is rewarded with thumping victory, but Mourinho insists his old club stand no chance of winning the title.
OK, we've got the Irish news for you this morning as well. Kingdom flex their muscles. Tyrone boss Hart will keep on getting better. Big news from Mickey Hart's post-match huddle seems to be that he says he's coming back for another year, which I'm kind of surprised about, to be honest. It felt like that maybe this team has gone as far as it can go under Mickey Hart.
It felt like two really demoralising defeats for the semi-finalists this weekend, didn't it? It kind of felt like the end of the road almost in both cases. But almost more so in Tyrone's case, because, I don't know, maybe the renewed sort of direct attacking play has given them something new to look at this year. But other than that, it does kind of feel like same old story. And had they won yesterday, like, would we even preview Dublin against Tyrone?
Well, we would, because we have 3 weeks of content to fill, and we're a sports media company, so yes, we would. But I know the point. It's like it would feel like the most foregone conclusion. At least with Dublin Kerry, there is the opportunity for us to. Kerry are coming. They're a young team, and we can build it up that way.
Yeah,
but nobody believes that, Eoin. Yeah, do they?
I'm going to make a very strong case for Kerry to beat the spread. Peter Keane, they won't get beaten by 5 points. Afterwards
was talking about I've just been down in the dressing room there, and the goalkeeper's on the phone to the local boot supplier, because he's going to need 3 pairs of boots to keep the ball kicked out to Dublin.
Oh, that's a great line. I wonder how long he's been working on that for.
Anyway, right, we're going to be back talking the All-Ireland semi-finals with Anthony Moyles right after this.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.
With over 15,000 coolers available to hire or buy, HSS Hire has a cooling solution for every workplace. Research shows staff are happier when their surroundings are comfortable. And with HSS Hire's range of fans, air conditioners and coolers, you can transform hot and stuffy into cool and calm. Drop into your local HSS, with branches nationwide in Dublin, Waterford, Cork, Limerick and Galway, and get up to 50% off your first hire. HSS Hire, you're better equipped.
How could a KBC personal loan make a difference to you? Make a difference to your... Make a difference to your... Make a difference to your... Or make a difference to your... Apply for a personal loan with KBC to find out how we can make a difference to you and your pocket. KBC, the bank of you. Lending criteria, underwriting, terms and conditions apply. KBC Bank Ireland plc is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.
Yeah, I suppose Tommy came home there, I think it was 2015, and he had an injury, he had a serious injury with his hamstring, but he stayed the course. We saw him last year in the County Championship where he did very, very well, and we got a great league out of him, and we've got a great 2 games out of him now.
He really, obviously all players performed, they upped their performance in the second half, but I felt he really made the difference. He came in, everything changed, and that's when scoring opportunities and things began to open up.
Yeah, I suppose. Look, there was other substitutes as well that came in, and Tommy did well, but the other subs came in and they all delivered, and the guys that were on the field put in a great shift in that second half.
Stephen O'Brien is another person who put in a great shift. He scored a goal. I think it was at 2 points, and now, as far as I know, unless things change, if he managed to get one or more of his black cards rescinded, he won't be playing All Ireland final day.
Yeah, that's what they're all telling me going around there in the media room. But look, we'll deal with that tomorrow.
Will you appeal it?
Sure, I have no idea what are the avenues, so look, we'll deal with that. We'll deal with that tomorrow.
Are you expecting me to believe now you haven't thought this through?
I'd say, Maura Trassa, there's much you don't know about.
Well, I don't know about that. There's lots of things I don't know, but one thing I do know for sure is that you're now in an All-Ireland final against Dublin. I don't believe that Kerry people are thinking, let's stop the Dubs. That's not what you care about. What you care about is winning.
Well, I suppose, look, if you get into any final, you want to win it. I wouldn't get too hung up on the negativity of stopping a team going for the 5 in a row. Of course, it's a unique achievement for Dublin to be in, going for the 5. But look, at the end of the day, we'll focus on our own positives and we'll give it a cut.
Exactly. You paddle your own boats.
We will, and hopefully there'll be no leak in it.
There you go. That's Peter Keane talking about Maura Trassa in the immediate aftermath of the game. Anthony Moyles is with us this morning to try and make some sense of what happened over the weekend. You were in Croker yesterday for the Tyrone game.
I was.
Again, first half and second half, significant difference. Why the difference in Kerry's performance in the second half and the first half?
It's funny, it wasn't actually as obvious as, say, the difference in the Dublin Mayo game on Saturday, that they did anything majorly different. They were out very early after the halftime team talk, very early, like
before the refs.
So, yeah, before the refs, and they actually brought like one of the fitness guys come out with them and had them in a huddle, just kind of warming up again and doing kind of sprints out, and then you could see them talking. But the one thing I observed, they looked quite relaxed at the same time. There wasn't any, major angst. They were quite. There was actually even a few smiles. And I was kind of saying to themselves, okay, they don't look too bad here, because they were dire first half. Like, they really were dire first half.
Well, if you think back to Tyrone 3.5, 4 years ago, if you went down 4 points, then that could be the final score.
Yeah.
Tyrone might just try and keep possession and go, okay, this game's over now. We're going to bore everybody into submission. We don't care. That wasn't on the cards.
It's funny, it's a different Tyrone, and we'll get on to that in a while, but because they kicked the ball an awful lot more into McShane. So they give you an opportunity to get the ball back now. An awful lot more. And they persisted with that at a time when they really shouldn't have. They should have actually just taken the sting out of the game a bit, because McShane was going well, but as soon as they put Morley on him, they took Foley off, who I thought was a bit hung out to dry, but Morley played him in front big time. Like, he just said, listen, I'm going to cover everything out in front. And of course, he won the first ball that came down out in front, which is always a good fill-up for a fella who gets switched on to a guy who's dangerous. But so what did Kerry do different? First half, it was like they were told on the bus coming in, you're playing Tyrone, right? Because they were getting the ball on the forward line. There was no real pace about it. There was no direct ball. There was no runners off the shoulder. It was guys getting it and kind of doing individual stuff. So a fella receiving a ball with his back to goal, taking a hop, turning into a man, and then bang, overturned, and away Tyrone went. There was no wit on their play at all. And they seemed... There was kind of two ways about it. Either A, they didn't really think about it, or B, they actually overthought it too much. Because if you looked, they were having some serious one-on-one battles. Like Thomas Sullivan was all over Petey Hart, and he just decided, okay, we're taking Hart out of the game. Then there was a bit more matchups that were going on. Sludden was matched up. Paul Murphy did a job on him for a lot of the game. Then you had... Moran was trying to get free, but they kept dropping Kavanagh off Moran, and they put your man Michael Cassidy, who came on number 17, who came on as a sub, started the game, and he did a job on Moran. And they were trying to get Moran into the game, but they were really struggling to get Moran into the game. He was kind of caught between the two 50s, and then any ball he was picking up very deep in his own full back line, and he couldn't kind of work it out. So his influence was completely gone. I think then as well, they tried to drop a man in front of McShane as a sweeper, and that completely didn't work because he was caught in no man's land. They used, what's the other midfielder's name?
Adrian Spillane.
Spillane came in and he obviously doesn't really know how to play it, because what was happening was he was sitting in front of McShane And then as Tyrone attacked, he actually ran out towards Tyrone. And then all Tyrone would do is would put it in over his head into McShane one-on-one with Foley. Like there's one point where you see him and he actually holds him off. He hands him off in the face and sticks it over with his right foot. So I just think they were caught between two stools majorly. They were caught overthinking Tyrone, I think. Overthinking, and they actually just didn't go out and play their own game. Now the second half was then completely different, right from the get-go. They just backed themselves. They ran hard, they pressed right up on them, they decided, let's not worry about him, let's do our own damage, let's squeeze right up on Kavanagh, which they did, and they matched everyone up in the Tyrone defence up front for themselves, and all of a sudden they started to pass the ball. They just passed the move, like nice little passes out here, got on it, and then of course the right men started to come out in the loops, and once you have, like, the individual brilliance is the only reason I give them an opportunity against Dublin.
Clifford.
Like they did 5 points in the first half yesterday, and if it was any other team bar Dublin in the country, it would have been 2. Really, because Clifford kicked the score with his left foot out underneath the Cusack stand, which was as good as some of Mannion's on Saturday night. It was an unbelievable score. O'Shea kicked 2 off the ground, if you remember, on the Hogan stand side, 10 yards in from the sideline. Good 45, 50 metres out, coming across himself with the breeze pushing it against it. The breeze was kind of going across the pitch, and he just nailed both of them. Like 3 unbelievable scores. And they didn't really create a whole lot more after that. So Tyrone probably, I thought they were living on an edge. If Tyrone had got a goal, they could have easily been 110, 111.
Yeah.
And Kerry would have been 5 or 6. So it was a terrible first half performance. And if they come out with anything like that against Dublin, even for 5 or 10 minutes, they'll get blown away.
That's the thing, isn't it? What we saw on Saturday night is that the reason why we talk about the whole full 70 to 80 minute performance is that any blip whatsoever results in just a massacre.
Yeah.
That is just the thing. Any letting down of the guard, any sort of deviation from the game plan, any individual error really at this point, you're screwed against them. And like, I'd agree with you. It's not, like, I don't understand that though, the process of actually that idea that you come off the team bus and you realise you're playing Tyrone, because it did look like that. Like, why do you think that was?
I don't know. I actually think that they overthought it a bit too much. I think they were trying to kind of say, Tyrone have changed. They've got McShane in the middle, so we have to get someone back. That's not really Kerry's way. Kerry don't truck with sweepers. They worry. They say let's all match up ourselves.
There was another bit of analysis. At one stage, it was Paul Murphy who was in front of them, and it looked like they were obviously trying to do that thing that sometimes Dublin do, where it's not always Johnny Cooper. If Cooper gets caught out of position, somebody else drops back in. But he again was caught in complete no man's land, and
then he started getting on the ball a little bit more and was sensational.
Correct.
In the second half.
Yeah,
correct.
Do you not go back to playing as a
sweeper in both halves actually at times, I thought.
Okay.
Yeah,
so
but actually what they did was in the second half much more. They found him with the ball when they were coming out, and they left him over. Well, on the Cusack stand side, and they said just go. And he absolutely caused havoc up there, because what they did was they matched up. So Kavanagh would go back and sit in, and then everyone else matched up, and they left him as the extra man.
He played like a soccer wing back.
Correct.
At that stage, which was an extra man arriving in space, and
he carried hard.
Yeah.
I just think they probably gave, which is fine. They gave respect to Tyrone, but I'd say they kind of just gave too much respect to Tyrone, and they didn't back themselves enough. What was great for me was I said Tyrone last week, because I thought, this young team, were they ready for the verbals and the physicals and everything else? And there was a bit of that in the first half. There was plenty, after they won the ball off them, they were down at them.
Donegal actually had a harder edge, I thought, to be honest with you.
Big time. I agree with you. Tyrone disappointed me in that fact. And as soon as Kerry started turning the key, the Tyrone fellas, it was amazing. It kind of reminded me, remember a couple of years ago when Kavanagh was roaring at them, shouting at them to get them going, and it was just like blank faces looking back at them. The All-Ireland final, was it last year, the year before? I think it was the year before that. I just kind of went, Jesus. And even at the end, there was 6 minutes of extra time. There was no real,
urgency
at
all.
Like, I don't know if you won't have noticed this on the TV, but you may have seen it. There was a free given, but the kind of Tyrone lad kept playing, and it went over to Burns, and he gets the ball on the far side. The free is from over here on the Hogan stand side. He gets the ball on the far side and he bounces it, and like the free's already made, and he clips the ball over with his right foot, as if like it's the first couple of minutes of the match. and the ball goes behind the goal.
So they've wasted 25 seconds.
Yeah, instead of kicking the ball as quick as you can, or someone going, give me the ball back.
Yeah.
I'm kind of going like, does this guy realise that they need a goal here? There's like 2 minutes left.
So Mickey Hart said afterwards that he's got the same enthusiasm to come back next year. I don't know if that's an official, I'm coming back next year, but it wasn't, I'll have to go and think about that over the winter. And I'm not sure that the right thing for Tyrone football anymore is for Mickey to still be the manager at this stage. Like, that team has been his team for a long time, and last year they reached an All-Ireland final. This year they didn't look close to reaching it, even though they're in an All-Ireland semi-final against Kerry, up 3 points or 4 points at half-time.
Mara Trusted did an interview with him. I listened to it on the way home, and he sounded very much like, yeah, you know, it's a team in with progress. You know, we hope to get to an All-Ireland final, but we'll just have to maybe leave that for another day. And I was kind of going, wow, that is unbelievable. Unless he's doing the complete opposite, which most guys would do, which is, even if they were going to hang around, they would say, oh, I'll have to think about it. I think they need something fresh. I think you need something fresh. I think as a bunch of players, you just need something fresh. They've done a remarkable job. Conditioning-wise and all that, they're there. And honestly, I looked at them. Physically, they're bigger than Kerry. You know, all over the place. I know doesn't mean height, but you know, legs, everything. You know, they look. But at the same time, then they started to look very heavy-legged in the second half. And I just felt that spark, that kind of manic enthusiasm just wasn't there in that second half. When the fight was really brought to them, they surrendered way too easily for me. Which
was the complete opposite of what made Tyrone great in the first decade of Mickey Hart's tenure. They always had that fight. Yeah, and they had it at the start. Like, they swarmed Kerry a few times, and they were, you know, it was kind of reminiscent of the 2000s, you know, and they won the ball back, and they were definitely G'd up and da-da-da. But then, yeah, it went, and that's the most alarming thing for me. If I'm Mickey Hart, I'm kind of going, that's not something that we can solve on the training pitch. That's not something that we can solve by bringing in a new coach. That's something that's now inherent in this team, and I'm not able to get this out of them for whatever reason. And that's a worry for them. You said there the individual brilliance is one of the reasons, is the reason why you might give Kerry a hope in the final. Eoin was making the case that he thinks it will be pretty close man to man if you were to put the two teams side by side. I don't think it is that close. I think it's kind of more 12-3 and 11-4 in favour of Dublin at the minute. What do you think? I think it's probably closer than that. I think again Mayo showed. So if you watch it, you analyse the Mayo Dublin game. I've watched it twice. Mayo did an awful lot right. A massive amount right from probably 10, 11, 12 okay, but definitely from midfield back. They did a massive amount right. They put Dublin under massive pressure. They turned them over on numerous occasions. They made fellas be very uncomfortable on the ball. They got their matchups correct with regard to certain guys like McCaffrey. They solved a lot of problems. You know, Scully was out of it first half. Kilkenny had a poor game first half. Howard was really the only one with Con O'Callaghan first half who was really stepping up. We should just take a moment, because Brian Howard's footwork was like phenomenal. A wide receiver. He was doing ballet in the middle of the field. He does that jink where he's looking like as if he's going to go right, and next thing he just cuts and he's just gone past you. And if you actually remember the Roscommon goal where he set Con O'Callaghan up? He gets that ball and he's looking like he's going to go. The Roscommon defence are drifting across. There's no one mind in the middle. And next thing, he just cuts. The Roscommon guy comes to him and he just slips it to Con O'Callaghan. Con O'Callaghan comes through and buries it. So he is phenomenal. And by the way, he was the real one who was they couldn't solve all the problems, Mayo. And he was the one who got him. I don't know who was on it. I don't know if Vaughan was on him. But I know Horan was realised we're in trouble here. Sorry for the thing that Mayo did show, okay, here's a bit of a blueprint on how you can get the matchups correct. What Horan, I'd say, was praying for at half-time was that we would keep it relatively tight for the first 10 minutes, maybe be behind by a point or two, so the scoreline would have come in, but we'd still be even Steven after about maybe 55 minutes on the clock, and then he can start to bring in McLaughlin and Andy Moore, because they definitely needed something more up front. Like, Carr's a good young lad, kicked a great point off of Simons, but really that's all he did. He flattered to deceive then. They'd no one who really, like, it was very hard on the defenders. They were doing an unbelievable amount of work, unbelievable amount of chasing and doubling up, and when they got the balls to the forwards, they didn't have that one or two guys. Cillian O'Connor was in and out. They really needed someone to just really punish Dublin for the amount of possession that they had.
because Dublin are so cool. Don't know if you remember, there was a 6, 7, 8 minute period around the 20-odd minute where Dublin turned over Tyrone, or Mayo turned over Dublin. It went back down, and then Cillian O'Connor gave a really stupid free away underneath the Hogan stand, a lazy tackle, and Dublin got the score. When he kind of just hit Cooper on the head.
His first booking,
Yeah. But Dublin never do that. If you're in the arm wrestle, they never foul you. They never give you the easy out. You know, you have to earn your score, but you have to get it. And
that happened a couple of times. Is it Cohen did the same thing? They were hassling and Harry and Scully was getting into a bit of trouble in the first half, and then eventually, when it looked like they were about to win the ball back, he gave away a stupid free.
Yeah.
And come on.
Yeah, and also in that period, I don't know if you remember, but in that period they kicked some really bad. Like Aidan O'Shea kicked a terrible wide when he came through. All he had to do was clip it over the bar. Remember that one? And Cillian O'Connor then kicked another bad one where it bounced in front of Cluxton. You know, he kicked an unbelievable score then after that when he came in onto his right foot. But there was a couple of points there, a couple of chances where they really just need to get. And that is the thing. But Kerry will get those. Kerry will. Like yesterday, I don't know what the efficiency of the shooting was in the first half, but they got scores where you kind of go, wow, most guys wouldn't get those.
They had 4 or 5 wides in the first half as well, didn't they? There was definitely, and at half time it was they were kicking under pressure, they weren't easy kicks, but the Dubs aren't taking those kicks unless you're Paul Mannion, in which case.
Yeah.
So there's the full, where's the wides? 8 in the first half, 8 in the whole game, and 6 for Tyrone. So I guess it's not bad scoring efficiency when you kick 118. Again, they're kicking 118 against
No, it's
Tyrone.
not bad. 113 second half, for 35 minutes football.
To wrap up the head-to-heads, I was making the point that Fenton is clearly ahead of Moran at this stage, even though Moran is really good. And that's how high Fenton is. He's like at an all-time great level midfielder at this stage. He's in the same conversation as Jack O'Shea and Mick O'Connell and Brian Mullins. He's like one of the greatest midfielders of all time.
Yeah, he's certainly... The problem for Mayo at the start of the second half was, I think for the first 6 kickouts they lost 5 of them, and they only won the other one by pure chance. They did get the ball down the far end. Again, they had opportunities which they didn't. They needed to lift the siege. They needed to face a kick out from Cluxton, because they were just being pinned back completely. And again, the defence in the midfield. But Henley was looking around, you could see him, he was running out of options. They did this massive pressure where they got 11 or 12 players up in front, 4 across the front, 4 here, 4 there, and they're just kind of saying to you, find some space. It's very, very difficult. And I know, I think I heard you earlier on talking about Donegal. Patton is a keeper who can execute it, I think, as good as Cluxton can execute. The most important man for the Kerry team will be the goalkeeper when that press comes, because it will come. Now, it's quite a difficult press, because if you do get out of it, you have an unbelievable chance of getting a score at the far end, right? Because what happens is, if you load one side and kick into that area, it will bring about 6 to 7 players into that area, because you'll have 4. So there are a lot of players in that area, which means there's a massive amount of space in the rest of the field. If you can win that ball, and if you have Clifford or O'Shea in, that's danger time for Dublin.
Yeah.
So it's a high-risk strategy. Now, does Moran have the ability to get up over Fenton and do that? I think he does. I think he's very, very good in the air. Again, I just want to see a bit more from him. Sometimes, like the first half yesterday, he was passenger type. He was going around the field. He wasn't really he needs to go in and dominate. He needs to say, don't go on anyone else. Don't go on Michael Darragh-Macaulay. Say, I'm taking Fenton and I'm going to dominate him. That's what I'm going to do. That's what I'm going to do for this team.
And who wins? At the minute, who's the best player, do you think, of the
Fenton.
two?
Fenton is. Because I think what Fenton does is he not only did he catch some unbelievable kickouts when they needed it, he broke ball, he was physical, he gets forward, he gets into areas where all of a sudden you're tracking and he's gone in behind you and he's available, and he very, 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 very rarely makes the wrong decision with the ball. I don't think I've actually seen him make a wrong decision with the ball. Whether it's kick pass, hand pass, shoot, he knows his limitations, which are pretty... let's be honest.
He's planning them out, whatever they are. And I still think he can peak. I think peak Fenton still has to happen. Whereas I think this is, maybe the peak was actually 2 years ago for David Moore. Maybe he's at that level now.
I think Kerry have to throw different things at him and at Dublin. you know, a lot of people,
they've had success with Brian Fenton in the past. Like Jack Barry's best day in the Kerry jersey has been marking Brian Fenton. Jack Barry and Brian Fenton has been the most successful matchup we've ever seen on Brian Fenton. So they have that weaponry there, and I'm not always convinced Fenton's been great against Kerry. I think in actual fact he's actually struggled against Kerry more than he's struggled against any other team. It would be great to see that matchup though. I'm just suspicious it's not going to happen.
It may not happen. And like, I mean, you might. The thing that and a lot of people reference it now, and football has become, you know, you used to think the 70 minutes was actually pretty short, but it's actually become quite long because management teams have sussed out teams very quickly, and they've gone, okay, they're doing this, and because of the extra time at half time, they can really get into it and say, okay, they're setting up this way, we now know what we need to do. So actually, the main thing for a management team now coming out is you have to completely change it in the second half. You have to throw some new things at a team, and especially like Dublin. You can't let Dublin suss you out, you know, because they'll go, okay, we know exactly what they're going to do there. They're pushing into this way. Their kickouts are going into these areas because they're getting so much, I'd say, analysis and data back for them. They have you worked out. You have to try some different things, and maybe, you know, there are those different things because Sherlock come in yesterday. Sherwood, and he was absolutely brilliant yesterday. Like, I mean, so direct, you know, kind of stood up Tyrone a number of times, just went right at them down the spine. Obiugli actually did that a couple of times because in the first half he was lost. He was in this kind of, I don't know where I'm playing kind of area, and they carried hard, and I still believe you have to carry hard at that Dublin team. You have to go straight down the middle and carry hard into that area. And
maybe that was Mayo's intention in the second half. In the first half it was like, let's keep the ball, let's just tire Dublin out of this. I mean, I don't know if it's tiring out, but like when they don't have the ball they can't score, and it made some sense, you know.
Well, I think the reason was they were working so hard to get the ball back. They realised we better keep a hold of this ball for a minute to get our breath back, you know, and then we can impose our own game, because they knew the amount of work they were putting in to turn over the ball, which was savage. They had to keep a hold of it, because if they gave it away straight away they would have been absolutely blown apart, and they did that well. The problem was, start of the second half, they just didn't get enough ball.
We talk about like this situation. Like first of all, when you brought up the statistics there, 118 from Kerry yesterday, I don't think that's actually going to be good enough to beat Dublin. Somehow I don't think 118 is going to be good enough to win the game. I think, as Michael Murphy said the other day, you need 20 points and probably a couple of goals as well at least. But like we glorify Kerry in terms of how great they are, in terms of a moment of brilliance from David Clifford and all that sort of stuff. And we sometimes get bogged down in the fact that Dublin's system is just so bloody good and they are such a machine. But Conor O'Callaghan and Paul Mannion, like, there's your argument, like, in terms of parity between, like, the great forwards the next day. Like, they're just as good. They have an ability to create something out of nothing as well. That really, you're looking at a juggernaut that is, as we've seen, unstoppable.
I think the main question is, so again, you go back in the analysis of the Mayo Dublin game, and both Mannion and O'Callaghan's influence was lessened by the fact that Colm O'Boyle was managed to get to them. Okay, so O'Boyle managed to get to O'Callaghan a few times. Remember O'Callaghan's chance where he just kind of side-footed it at Henley? It was a weak shot. It was about 6 minutes in.
It was actually, I think it was 3 minutes in. It's really early in, and
it was a warning sign.
To be honest, he skins Lee Keegan, takes him on, bounces the ball past him, skins him, and there's just another. There's a covering person helping out.
Correct.
Who almost as if you need the sweeper.
Yeah, exactly. And you kind of go to yourself, like, if you're upstairs and you're into Horan's ear, you're saying, that's danger zone number one. We have to sort that out, because ultimately they didn't sort it out. Because so if you watch the two goals that happen, O'Shea is the man who's tracking back. He sees the danger, he doesn't get back quick enough. O'Callaghan steps inside and he's kind of going, but Boyle was missing. And then for a lot of Mannion scores, if you see, he stands up, Harrison stands him up, and Boyle is kind of there, but he never gets close enough to him, and he's able to come in. You have to have someone who's able to do that. You have to have a situation where you have someone who can double up.
And whose job it is. Okay, hold that thought, because we want to talk about that in a bit more. It's 27 minutes past 8 this morning. You're watching OTB AM. Anthony Moyes is with us. We're going to finish on this. Is this the end of the road for this Mayo side? Because we're getting to that point now. Have a look.
I remember standing in the press box after the 16 replay, and as we've had the conversation before with other journalists saying, they can never come back from this. How can he get up off the floor? And in 17 they came back and got up off the floor and came closest. It was probably their greatest display, because they put Dublin so close.
Yeah.
But the point is, and not just to get off Joe's piece for a second, is that I think it's easier to come back after the crushing disappointment of a 1-point All-Ireland final defeat than it is from yesterday. Yes, they had a feeling of finality about it. They are further away from Sam Maguire than they have been since probably 2011 when James Horan took over, and they'd lost to Longford in 2010. And I think, and there's an awful lot of end of era pieces. Eamon Sweeney is a good piece where he talks about Mayo, saying that their legacy is not diminished by virtue of the fact that they didn't win the All Ireland. Now that's an interesting point. Like, is it or isn't it? Like, their legacy as a great sporting story isn't diminished, but as a great team,
but it's not enhanced.
Yeah,
it's not diminished, but it's not enhanced either.
There is the feeling of an end of days about this. I think I was in James Horan's press conference yesterday, and he said, "Look, the team will change. There will be natural erosion." I'm paraphrasing him. That's what he said.
Yeah.
And there's guys who are 34, 35 who have put so much into this now that it would be hard to see them come back, because the Mayo thing might be another 3 years until they're still in the top 2 or 3 teams in the country, but they were miles off Dublin yesterday.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting thing, and we kind of talked about this a couple of months ago in the middle of the summer when they were really struggling. It just looked like this team is over, and the new Mayo team, which will be the infusion of the successful under-18s the last couple of years, plus the last few years of the guys who are in their 20s, and so Cillian O'Connor's going to stay, Aidan O'Shea's going to stay, and they'll be mainstays of the team for the next while. But that slew of 30-somethings, Lee Keegan, you would imagine, will stay as well. They're going to have to go, because it's not enough anymore. Like, that team isn't going to get you over the line. You need a new team now.
I don't think they were miles off Dublin. I thought they showed areas where Dublin can be got at, but I think ultimately that amount of work that they required to stay in the game and be ahead, and maybe even potentially be more, they needed to be 6 or 7 up at half time. They needed that, because Dublin were always going to come with a blitz. Generally, it's the first 10 minutes of the second half. That's where they really put the squeeze on you. And Dublin also tire. They do. They're an immense team, but they do tire, and they tired a bit. You look at the Mayo, so how many will they lose? They lose Higgins, they lose Moran, they will lose maybe Boyle, maybe the 2 O'Shea lads, potentially. It does rip the heart. Vaughan will probably go. And not even a thing of, even if fellas don't put their hand up, there needs to be a bit of a clean out. But at the same interesting point, talking to Malachy Clerkin yesterday, the Mayo team that started and finished was younger than on average age than the Dublin team. So they did have a lot of young lads on the team. They had a lot of young lads in that squad and on the pitch on Saturday. So I'd say he has already began the process, and I'd say he has an eye on that anyway. I'd say Horan probably sat there and went, this is a bit of a bonus, to be honest. If you go back to the start of the year,
being a semi-final is a bonus.
I think so.
I think they thought that there was one chance to get the band back together, to go magnificent 7-0 out and go, right, that was it, and we squeezed one out at the end.
But do you not think they got as far? Really?
It turns out yes. I think that was never going to happen, but because that chance came 2 years ago, and
I was worried for them last week that they were going to get. I thought they were going to get a real hammer from Dublin,
and. Part of me feels like Dublin kind of stopped for a little while there in the second half as well. I went, okay, we're finished now, and the changes started to happen, and
I think you're right. I think Horan went in for one last chance, one last roll of the dice to see if we can do this thing, and maybe his eyes weren't set on a long-term project. So as soon as the game ended, I know he's absolutely made no sounds, but as soon as the game ended, I was like, is that James Horan done? I think you both disagree. I think he's probably going to hang around, but I definitely thought that he was kind of like the managerial emblem of the old lads who are about to retire now. He was the one guy who might be able to rekindle something to get back to a level where they might challenge Dublin, and it just hasn't happened. Sport is cruel, and I thought that was that.
Yeah, I think he'll hang on. I think he'll hang on. I think he's got enough good stuff as well. They've been decent now, minor and under 20 levels, so he's going to pick and choose out of there. And I think with Ruan and Carr and a couple of other fellas like this, he has got going. And he has actually started to unearth, albeit they weren't great last weekend, and they're young and they're not used to that big game experience, but he's unearthed a couple more forwards that can hopefully start to step up.
Yeah, and they've got great underage talent coming through as well. Anthony, good stuff.
No bother, Dublin
by how many in the final, or is it too early?
It's too early. Let me settle on that for a while.
It's 8:33 this morning. You're watching OTB AM, or you're listening to us on OTB Sports Radio. The Go Loud app is the best place to do that at the moment. We've got Stephen Kelly in studio next, looking back at the first weekend of the Premier League season. We kicked off the season with 2 live commentaries yesterday. Stephen Doyle and Pat Nevin were at Newcastle against Arsenal. Nathan and Kevin Kilban called Manchester United 4, Chelsea 0. Here's Kevin and what Anthony Martial and Marcus Rashford can achieve this season.
You were saying before the game that you feel that Anthony Martial and Marcus Rashford are really going to have to deliver a lot of goals this season if Manchester United are to achieve anything. Rashford got 2, Martial got 1. Did they show enough out there for you that they're going to do that?
Yes, they did. To be truthful with that. Not in the first half. I think, and I think it was you actually that commented it in commentary, where too many times the ball was played into Martial or Rashford, and there was a flick. It was a flick of the ball rather than retain possession. As a striker, it's basic stuff. Get hold of the ball. You've got your back to play. You need to retain possession. It's a crucial part of the game when you're building up attacks. Whereas United in the first half, it was happening too freely. That there was too many loose possession, they were too loose in possession and giving the ball away. Second half, I think they were better. They were a lot more solid at holding the ball. That's your basics. But I think the one thing what I looked at, certainly with the second and third goal that United scored, Anthony Martial right between the middle of the goals, 3 or 4 yards out from goal. So, too often Martial looks for a pullback. He looks to try and go for a worldie goal, and then Rashford's goal where spinning off the shoulder defender, it was a perfect pass from Paul Pogba, but got himself in a goal scoring position 1-on-1 and scored. So yeah, potentially those two or 40 goals, easily 40 goals in a season off the two of them, and that's what they have to deliver this season.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Stephen Kelly, good morning to you. How you doing?
Morning, yeah, very good.
Let's start with Manchester United, because obviously that's the game the lads have just been talking about there. Were they 4 goals clear of Chelsea yesterday, or is that just game flow?
I think game flow. I think Chelsea started off well and they hit the post. They had a couple of opportunities and they caused them problems early on defensively. Man U were obviously still kind of knitting together. Maguire was his first kind of step. He only trained a week or so with them. So, but Chelsea looked sharp, then the young players, Mount and Abraham, were keen to get on the ball and were trying to offer something. But as Man U got into the game, they kind of they stopped them and irritated them, and then they were better in midfield. They retained the ball better. So they, but as the game on 4-0 was probably flattering, but they were very clinical in their finishing.
Yeah, so that's a very positive sign from Manchester United's perspective. I guess the big thing, talking to the Man United fans and the journalists who cover them all the time, their midfield was a big issue last year, but their defence was also an issue. Yeah. They've invested heavily in Maguire and Wan-Bissaka. This is our first opportunity to see how much of a difference they're going to make. Maybe we should take them individually. What was Maguire like?
Yeah, I thought he did very well. He started off, again, probably a little bit rusty. I don't think he played that often for Leicester in pre-season with all this going on in the background, so a little bit. So when he came into it, and it's a new surroundings, new game, like it's probably going to be a bit daunting playing at Manchester United, but I think he handled it very well. And like I said, Abraham caused him a few problems early on, but as he got the grips of the game, he nullified them, and even Giroud towards the end didn't really make a difference. So he steadied himself, looked good in the ball. You know that he's good at bringing the ball out of the fence, and he assured them, and him and Lindelof looked like they could be a good pairing together. And Man U, the question mark is always going to be about the price tag, but is he a better defender than what they have there? And he is. So that's what it comes down to.
And they're so rich, it doesn't really matter in the end.
Exactly, yeah, exactly.
So long as it doesn't matter to him, if he can get over the price tag, that'll be fine. What about Wan-Bissaka?
Yeah, I like him. I do like him. He's young, and he had a very good season for Palace, and he's playing week in, week out. He drives forward well with the ball. Defensively, he's good, but he's still young, so positional sense sometimes is probably something he needs to work on, and that will come with game time and experience. But they've got the makings of a good back four there. I know you see quotes from Mourinho saying about Maguire's how he's had to cover Shaw a few times, and that's a little dig at him. And
I think he was actually playing more of a right centre half.
Yeah, he wasn't even playing the side, so it was a strength. But I think it was Mourinho getting out. Talking about Shaw, but as it goes, they've got legs in the back four now. All the players are relatively young. If they can keep them fit and play together as often as they possibly can, they could create a decent unit.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think 23 years and 7 months is the average age of the outfield player yesterday for Manchester United. It's very interesting looking at these two boys in the front of the paper there, Martial and Rashford. It seemed that Martial wasn't exactly delighted to be playing out wide all this time. Something that we kind of forget because we see his pace and we're like, he must be a great winger if he's that fast. Whereas this flip situation here, it seems Marcus Rashford is okay with the situation being out of the left, because as we can see, he can get inside and he can get those goal opportunities himself.
I think when you look at Rashford, I think Martial is predominantly does like going up the middle, and he's very good in that sense. But Rashford, he likes coming in off the right, and it's almost like, you can't compare him to Tyrone, but he has that sort of same physique. He's quick, he's strong, he's tall, and he drifts out there when he's playing up front. And anyway, that's a position he likes to pick up, to come inside and get those finishes. So yeah, now listen, those two up front can cause anybody problems any day, and if they get the service they can, and then when you have Pogba coming into it and him being released, and I was talking earlier about how I feel that if the back four can be solid, that Pogba's kind of negligence in midfield sometimes, where he's a bit sloppy and gives the ball away, will be kind of taken over. The back four will be able to deal with those situations better if they're more solid, and it'll allow him to more of a free roll to drive forward, because when he does get on the ball and he drives forward and he gets in positions, like he's created 2 goals yesterday, and the second one for James was fantastic, just the pace and power, and then when he gets into position, the composure to find the pass. So yeah, and they look like they could be good. It's just what Man U's going to show up on the day, and that's what no one knows. If they can show consistency this season, that'll be a huge improvement.
Yeah, so this Ole Gunnar Solskjaer obviously had a full pre-season with the majority of this team. Obviously Maguire's just arrived, so his complaints about the team not being fit under Mourinho or fit to play the style of football that he wanted, it's entirely on him. And if I'm looking back and I'm Solskjaer and I'm trying to put some kind of narrative on what happened last year, it was my initial burst came in, we played the football I wanted to play, but then they tired, and that's why the results fell off. I mean, I don't know if it's credible or not.
It's a great excuse for him to have, because what you're saying, he came in and he wanted to inject this style and pace to the game that if they hadn't played before, or they're a bit more of a lull when they're playing, that they were going to taper off towards the end because the physicalities of it was going to drain them. But now there's no excuse, because all these are professional footballers, and they're all young professional footballers. Yeah. So the average age is 23. They should be able to run all day.
And did you see the energy from them across the full course of the game?
You can see it.
It is a change in the style. It's very definitively what he's trying to do as a manager.
Yeah, Mourinho's is a totally different manager. Mourinho will set his team out to try and, like, he sets them up to play and win games, but he also sets them out to stifle teams and stop other teams from playing, whereas Solskjaer looks like he wants to run over teams, which is what the likes of Liverpool and Man City have done. So he's more in that mindset, and to do that your team has to be extremely fit, but you also have to have the players on the bench to be able to come into the game, because it's inevitable that players will pick up knocks and strains because of the type of pace of the game they're going to play. So the people that are going to replace them have to be good enough to come in and do that, and I think Man U have a good squad.
Pogba hung around after the game to applaud the fans. He's back on loving terms with them, but then afterwards he gives an interview to RMC and says, I always feel very good when I play football. I do the things I like, plus it's my job. I give my all every time I go out on the pitch. I'm aware that things have been said about his future. Only time will tell. There's always that question mark.
Yeah, I think the problem is, if he was just to commit to them, then the fans are probably completely on board and love him. But because he's always edging for something more, or it's always the unknown factor what could come along, that's probably an issue with him, and why people find him frustrating. Because when he does play, and even in the games, he can be very frustrating. Like yesterday, at times he's extremely frustrating, but then when he does things well, and the type of player he can be when he's at his best, he can be exceptional. So for Man U, they have someone that, if I know Solskjaer probably knows he needs to put his arm around them and love him to get the best out of him. I don't think he's going to respond well to loads of criticism, because you could see that under Mourinho when he criticised them and when he punished them and put him on the bench. It's not like he went off and thought, right, I want to prove myself. He doesn't seem like that sort of character. He's the type of character that needs to have an arm around him and be told he's the best player, go out and do everything for us. And if Solskjaer can do that for him and the club can do that, then they can have an absolute gem on them. But again, it's just which one turns up, and if he's still got one eye on a move, then that's got to be frustrating for them.
For sure. Now, like, what are you looking at now from the Manchester United lineup? Obviously, the back four seems to be fairly set at this point. Pogba just in front of them. Saying like McTominay will hold on to his position, and the two boys, Martial and Rashford, will start. Like the other two positions there, you're looking at Pereira and you're looking at Jesse Lingard. Do they hold on to their positions? Is Daniel James now part of Solskjaer's best 11?
You think that James' pace could cause Lingard an issue, because Lingard will play, but you would think that Daniel James, if he progresses the way he did last season and continue on in the same vein, his pace is just another outlet for them. They've got so much pace, and to throw another player in there that's blistering can be a benefit. And for it to come on and score in his debut, great for the young lad, because it's just going to give him that confidence and feel like he's part of it and this is where he belongs, which is what you need to feel as a young player. So he can definitely be knocking in the door. But Lingard, you would say, was set to start because he does offer goals. He offers a little bit of guile around that front. He can drop into pockets. He can pick a pass as well. But you would think James has an opportunity to push him.
Would you be worried for Frank Lampard after yesterday?
I think Lampard has probably time on his side when it comes to Chelsea. You think that, you never know with Chelsea, but you think he has time on his side. Especially with the transfer embargo, not being able to bring in players, he's trying to kind of put this new era into place where young players are given a chance and they're going to try and push them through. The question is, everybody's talked about these young players at Chelsea for a long time and how that they've gone on loan and they've been sold for big money, but are any of them going to come through and actually make it at Chelsea? And they're going to get an opportunity now, so it's whether they can take the... I think what you can't underestimate though is the massive difference it's going to make not having Eden Hazard. Like, he is... Last year, if anybody watched them play, you would have said Eden Hazard was Chelsea. Like you have players like Willian who missed the game, and Kante, who's again another great string to her bow, and I'm sure Lampard would be like delighted to have those two back to fully fitness and playing. But Hazard was, everything went through him. Everything good that Chelsea did was, so him not being there is such a huge blow to that club. And if they can get anybody get close to what his performances were, that'll make a difference.
David Luiz is better than Kurt Zouma as well, right?
Yeah.
Like, if you're, I completely buy the idea that if you're a manager, it's my way or the highway, especially in your early days. But I do wonder if he's going to look back on that and rue it a little bit in terms of holding on to all his assets in the summer.
Yeah, and you think with Luiz wanting to go to Arsenal, maybe he felt things might not have been quite as right as they were when he was last season or two ago. Again, Luiz is, everybody speaks about him on his day. Again, for that, like, how many times we keep talking about this players, they're on their day great players, but they're not consistent. Like Pogba and Luiz, but yeah, same thing. On his day, he can be fantastic. He's great in the ball. He's tough on the tackle. He can be a good defender, and you sometimes look think, oh, he's a world beater. And then he just has these moments of madness that. But Zouma did okay for Everton last season. I wouldn't have thought he was the best defender in the world, but he's someone that is young, and hopefully Lampard can improve him. But yeah, you would have thought keeping David Luiz would have been important to them just for the way they play and he fits in. But you know, Lampard is trying to put a stamp on the team, and he wants to create a team in his image, not on what's been there before.
Stephen, as a fullback, just to wrap up on Man United, what's your view on Luke Shaw? Is he good enough to play in that team?
To be honest, the question's still out for me. I just don't know. You see him playing, and sometimes you think, God, he's a fantastic footballer. Like, is driving forward the ball, technically excellent, defensively. Sometimes, it's, like I said, like Wan-Bissaka's position is, but Luke Shaw's been around a lot longer, so he should have, those parts of his games, he should have improved on more probably than he has now. And there's always that question about fitness. Like, sometimes you look at him, you think he does look overweight times, and is he fully committed to playing at the top level? All in all, he's a good player. I just think, like, if Man U had been able to get someone like Danny Rose, who I would say is much better than Luke Shaw, and in cases where you have Ashley Young, who's played ahead of him for a lot of the time in Manchester United. Yeah. Ashley Young is a winger, a makeshift fullback, and don't get me wrong, he's done really well. But the fact that Ashley Young was able to take Shaw's place when it came to England and Manchester United at one point, I think says a lot about him.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's the view, obviously. Jose Mourinho definitely agreed with it last year. It's, 8:46 this morning. You're watching OTB AM. We're here with you every morning from 7:30 until 9:30. Stephen Kelly's with us now, but we did want to bring you this. This is Jose Mourinho, and he reckons we'll finish top 4 this season. Have a look.
How many teams, realistically, do you think can win the title?
4. Man City, Tottenham, Liverpool, and Man City B team. When I look at the bench yesterday, there was some images of the bench, and the players that were not even involved. I think even the B team could fight for the title.
Jose Mourinho making the Dublin football B team joke on Sky yesterday. Obviously paying a lot of attention. So he reckons that really Spurs have an opportunity to win the title this year apart from Liverpool and Man City. Is he right? The Spurs, are they good enough? Is their squad deep enough?
They have made improvements, and they brought in players that will push players in the positions that have. It's going to, I think a lot of people made note of it, how Eriksen was so influential from the weekend and keeping hold of him. Now with the window still not being closed in like Spain and places like that, if he still is a target for those big clubs, Tottenham need to do everything they can to hold on to him. Like, I'd be just trying to tie him down to the longest deal as possible. I'd be offering him everything, because when you look at statistically, there's almost no one in the league that offers the same amount of assists and is influential on a game than he is. So he's huge, and if they can keep hold of him, they'll have a great chance of progressing and doing well this season. Harry Kane getting 2 on the first day of the season. he's going to score goals. So if you can keep him on the pitch as well, they have a great chance. It's just the level that Man City and Liverpool set last season, and they've started off again. People always say the season's like a marathon, it's not a sprint, but these have started off like Usain Bolt. Like, it's unbelievable. Everybody's gone for the first game of the season. Like, it's out of traps that we're going to win this league today. So it's phenomenal to think that these teams have started off so well and so quick with all their top scorers getting on the score sheet. Everybody's probably in contention for the Golden Boot is almost scored yesterday in the first day of the season. People were
multiple goals,
multiple goals. So if the season continues like this, I thought last year was probably going to be hard to beat for the sense of two teams going for it. If this season is anything to go by after the first game, you're going, wow, what premiership?
Well, where would the Manchester City B team finish? Third?
You would think, you think Liverpool would be better than them because of how good Liverpool are, but you think they'd push Tottenham. Do you think they would push Tottenham? Like, there's some of the players they have at their disposal at that club, and it's not just the players they have at disposal, it's the manager that be taking charge of them. So if Pep Guardiola was taking that team as well, you'd be thinking he just demands the best, and he has such a good knowledge of how to get the best out of his players and for them all to respect him so much. So I think they'd be more consistent than probably Man U would be, but like, who knows in Manchester United, because on paper they could be anybody really. It's just, like I said, if they're consistent enough.
With Christian Eriksen, do you think that there was a situation of, oh, look at this shiny thing over here, when it came to the likes of Philippe Coutinho and Paulo Dybala, that actually there was just a complete lack of appreciation over the past month or so about how good Christian Eriksen is right now?
I honestly think, I don't think Tottenham would have wanted him to go, but I think the problem Tottenham had is that he's been linked with so many big clubs, they felt like he was going to go. I wouldn't have thought Tottenham would have wanted him, or would have in any way felt like he was a player that they were happy to sell. Sure. It was more the fact that he was being linked with Real Madrid and Manchester United to some extent, that they thought we can't hold on to him because we're in a position where if Real Madrid actually make a play for him, he's going to go. So they were positioning themselves to bring in players that can replace him. Realistically, would those players replace what he gives to them? Probably not. Even though they're fantastic footballers, they probably don't offer the same as what he does in a team that he's embedded in and understands the workings of it, and seems to have a very good working relationship with the manager, a connection with Kane and the other players that they're Ali. So they seem to just knit well together. Holding on to him will be absolutely imperative for Tottenham to progress and do well, and especially with them not bringing someone else in to replace him.
We should talk about Arsenal. They've won at St James's Park. We don't know yet what kind of difficulty it's going to be to go to St James's Park this year, but Arsenal always not a team you would back at St James's Park to win games.
No.
Well, you talk about like a season being a marathon, not a sprint.
Yeah.
I think Arsenal were in full marathon mode, saying let's just jog here out of the blocks for a little while, because that was a pre-season team.
Yeah, they didn't. I have to. Aubameyang, though, his movement and some of the runs he made, there was a time Mkhitaryan went through him, clip over the ball, but his run just to go across the defender and then peel off the back, he just looks, again, someone that you would say 100% is going to be contention for the Golden Boot. So Arsenal have got already a player there that is going to get them 20 plus goals this season, and then if Pepe comes in and can produce going forward, they look like a good side. It's just defensively, Arsenal, are they going to be reassured, and is David Luiz going to fill that void that they've been missing?
Do you think?
I've got my question marks, because he's like I said, like I say all the time about him, he can be very good, but then he's also capable of doing something crazy. And the way the season started and the way last season finished, teams don't seem to have an opportunity to slip up for 3 or 4 games, because you'd be left behind and then the catch up is hard. So if Arsenal do that, they're going to struggle.
Yeah, so I don't think Arsenal are title contenders at all, but in terms of getting back into the Champions League, like, their squad is good enough now. The manager's in the second season, they have invested the way they haven't in previous years. They've still got they've got the bones of a Champions League team, right?
Yeah, they do have the bones of a Champions League team, but then there's 6 teams that have that. So it's going to be whether Arsenal are good enough to compete with those teams and whether they can be consistent enough to actually get up there. But you would think it's going to be Chelsea are going to, they're not going to struggle, but they're going to have to find their feet quite quickly in this league.
It's a good chance for Arsenal to get ahead of Chelsea and get into the Champions League. Yeah. And then Man United are the other team that they need to really target.
Yeah. You would think Tottenham, Liverpool and Man City, they're the ones that are going to get into that top 4 position based on managers, consistency, and the squad being, all the squads have been benefited by bringing in a couple of fresh players, minus probably Liverpool, who haven't really brought anybody in at all. Man United, Arsenal have brought players in, and are trying to do the right things. It's just whether or not they can actually be consistent enough to get into that position. And Chelsea then are in a transition where they're trying to bring in a lot of young players, and they have signed a few more players, but they've lost the best player, probably one of the best players ever to play at the club.
Stephen, I have one more thing I want to talk to you about. Pat Nevin caused massive controversy for us when he was talking. He did the Newcastle Arsenal game, and he was talking about Kieran Tierney's credentials, comparing them to another Scottish fullback, Andy Robertson, and he came down very strongly on one side of the debate. So here he is, have a look.
I talked to a number of managers in the Premier League and said, "I've got a player for you, just buy him now. It's costing you 11, 12, 13 million, but get him." And they all said the odd look, and they all went, "I don't know." And I'm saying, "Buy him." And they didn't. So Van Dijk goes to Southampton instead of going to Chelsea, where I thought he should go, or whatever, Man United. And I couldn't believe it. I'm saying, it's staring you in the face. It's so clearly, and if you played a bit and you know the game a bit, every Celtic fan knew fine well how good he was. Tierney's the same. Yeah, and he's that quality. And now I watched Robertson at Liverpool. He's a great player. He's fantastic. Who would I have between Robertson and Tierney? I'd have Tierney, without even waiting. And that's taking nothing away from Robertson. Robertson's brilliant. Tierney's a better all-round player. Tierney will play left centre back, left of a three, left back, right back. He'll play any of them, and he'll play any of them brilliantly. If he gets over the current injury, they tell me that's 4 or 5 weeks away yet. He's got a long and fabulous career. The biggest downside is really for the Celtic fans. They'll miss him massively. 25 million. When he goes next time, it's well over double that. So that's a shame, but there's nothing. That's not Celtic's fault.
Yeah, so a ringing endorsement for Kieran Tierney as somebody who can play right across the back four and ahead of Andy Robertson at this point.
It's a big statement, considering Andy Robertson was probably the best left back in the world last season. Like, he really was. He had, for me as a fullback, he offered everything. His defending ability, his positional sense, his tenacity in the tackle. He's aggressive, but then going forward as well, he was relentless. Like, for the whole season, he was always in a position to cross the ball, be at the far post. Just the only thing I didn't see him do was really try to shoot, had an effort on goal. And I don't know whether, I'm not sure it's lacking in confidence, but you know, you see Alexander on the other side, anytime he gets into the box, he's happy to have a strike, so he's probably more confident in his striking ability. That's the only thing I would say that Robertson didn't really do last year, but overall he was the best left back world over for what I saw it. And as a former fullback, I understand how important they are and their role is this season. So for Tierney to be put on that pedestal beside him, when like I said, I wouldn't have seen enough of him to be able to compare him or to say that, but I'd say he's probably got a long way to go to get to those levels.
High praise though.
It's high praise, yeah. And if you've seen him that often and he really feels that about him, then you're probably in for the making of an unbelievable player, and this Premiership could be fantastic for him.
Yeah, so Arsenal really should be thinking about qualifying for the Champions League.
There you go, yeah.
Like, just on that, like, it's interesting when you were talking about the top four credentials and all that, you mentioned managers. Like, is Unai Emery in the top four when it comes to managers? Because, like, you'd fancy him against Frank Lampard and Solskjaer, perhaps, given their newness to the game.
Yeah, just based on the fact of what he's done in the game. And even last year, you could see what he was trying to do with Arsenal, and there was glimpses of it, and of how he was trying to get them to play and set up, and some of the big decisions he was able to make throughout the season, like Ozil and that. So he's been around long enough. He has a good understanding. His experience is there, and he's got time. He seems to have a little bit of time with Arsenal to embed and trying to put his philosophy down and his playing style. And you would think, based on what he's done before, he would be in a better position than Solskjaer and Lampard, like I said, because of his experiences. And this is his second season now into the Premiership, so he understands it a bit more. And the couple of signings they've brought in can definitely benefit them. But I think Aubameyang is a gem, and if you can keep him fit on the pitch, just the way he moves off the ball as a defender, he'd be horrible to play against, because he's always off your shoulder, and he gives that whole thing of one run for you and one run for the defender. He does that, and it's not nice to play against.
Stephen, good stuff. Thanks very much for joining us.
Great, thanks.
Not a bad opening weekend of the Premier League. We're talking All-Ireland Hurling final week. Cian Lynch is in with us after these.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.
I hear you some wiring needs a fixing, ma'am. The name's Buzz, on account of my work.
No chance.
Not all cowboys ride horses. All Safe Electric registered electrical contractors must give you a certificate of completion that shows their work meets approved standards. Find one nearby on safeelectric.ie.
Join Bruce Betting now for a risk-free first bet up to €100. That's right. New Irish accounts can enjoy a risk-free first bet up to €100. So if your first bet loses, we'll refund your stake with a free bet. Now that's giving you more. Bruce Betting. In store, online, and now on your phone. T's and C's apply. Please gamble responsibly. See dunlewy.net.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.
Okay, so located at the heart of communities nationwide, Centra continues to celebrate its association with the GA All-Ireland Hurling Senior Championship through its hashtag We Are Hurling campaign. The campaign not only recognises and celebrates individuals who help make hurling great, it also unearths those individuals' passions on and off the pitch. To see how Centra continue to champion the hurling community across Ireland, follow the hashtag We Are Hurling or at Centra IRL on Twitter. Cian Lynch is here with us this morning. How are you?
How are you getting on, Liz?
The week of an All-Ireland Hurling final, you're not supposed to be in studios talking stuff about the game.
I know, it's as I said there before, it's going to be a tough old week, like building up to a game, but I suppose it's going to be very interesting too. Tipperary and Kilkenny there, the history they've had playing each other and down through the years, so it's going to be very interesting.
Before we get on to that, let's talk a little bit about the pain of the week. Is this something you have to kind of take into, like, because if you want to be a really great team, you've got to do it again, right?
Yeah.
And like, there's no reason why you won't. You're all the right age profile, but you need to learn from the experience and channel this pain and remember that what this is like next year for...
Yeah, I suppose the minute the final whistle went against Kilkenny, it was kind of a massive blow and a massive kind of low in a lot of our lives, like, and the week after, I suppose, probably the lowest we've been in a while, like, and it's something you don't get used to, or I suppose we all go through life and we've more kind of downfalls and losses in life, but losing an All-Ireland semi-final, it's a tough place to get to and it's a tough place to go back to, so I suppose it's a massive kind of thing we have to take as a learning and try and drive on and get back there, but I suppose Kilkenny showed that a massive intensity and a massive work rate can drive on and get you to where you want to go. Like,
do you need to, have you talked about it as a group? Was there a post-mortem where you know, like, or does that happen next year really?
I suppose it'll be next year, like, cause we were kind of back with our clubs kind of straight away and club championship last week, so we have to kind of divulge it ourselves and kind of put it into the back of the minds and get back and get focused for club championship too, which is massive too. Like,
loads of people said the game was over after 15-20 minutes, Kilkenny just came in, blew the doors off, and that was the end of that. But actually, if you look back at it, you had loads of chances to get back in the game, and it was wayward shooting as much as anything that did for you.
Yeah, I suppose when a few things don't go your way, like a few wides or a few kind of missed shots or missed chances, you're kind of chasing the game, and we couldn't, if we got back within to draw or whatever, it could have changed, but we never got back to draw or to lead the game, so that's something that's kind of annoying us and kind of stuck in the mind too, like that Kilkenny just kept pushing and kept going, and great credit due to them and massive character showing that they didn't leave it slip, and look, they got their win and they're in an All-Ireland final.
Did you take them too lightly? Was there any sense of that in the build-up to the game at all?
No, we've massive respect for Kilkenny, like even playing them last year down in Thurles, there was only a few points in it towards the end they led and we got back on top, and it's always kind of tight margins, and it just shows what Cody has done with the players and what the players do for the management there as well. They've drove on and they keep going and they keep fighting and they're back in an All-Ireland final, so it's great credit to them. Like,
what's that like in the opening 10-15 minutes when you realise immediately, oh God, this is Kilkenny back to their best in terms of their intensity?
Yeah, sure, like, no, you don't have to be under any illusions with Kilkenny, like they always bring that intensity, and the hurlers they have too is massive, but for ourselves, like, it took us a while to get going and try and get to grips with the game. We never found our flow and never got our full kind of range, and it's kind of something that you can say it was either our own as players, like we never got going, but Kilkenny had a massive kind of work rate and kind of stopped us from playing too, which was huge. And I suppose the regret for me personally, is the regret that we'll live with for the next few months and for the next few years, that we didn't get over that line, like, and drive on. But that's sport, and they're kind of things you have to take in life, you know.
It's been a fairly amazing 12 months if you kind of consider back to this time last year when you were building up to the All-Ireland final, to roll on and win the league and to kind of be so successful up to that point. All great teams do have setbacks, and it's kind of how you deal with the setback that defines how great the team ultimately is considered.
Yeah, like John, as I said, it has been a great year. We'll say 2018 leading 2019 to league and won the championship, but within ourselves, our own expectations like are high, and we'd love to have gone on to get to an All-Ireland final and drive things on again. But yeah, great teams do learn more. You learn more in games you lose than you do in games you win, and for us it's about bouncing back, but no one knows where we'll be tomorrow or what tomorrow might bring, so we'll have to cherish the moments we've had and try and prepare for the future. Like,
is that something you enjoyed, the constant tag of All-Ireland champions and All-Ireland favourites in some quarters throughout the whole year?
Yeah, It was great, obviously, but I suppose when the 2019 kind of calendar began, it was kind of something we kind of shut down, and 2018 was over, and we were All-Ireland champions, but that's changed now, and I suppose between Kilkenny and Tipperary to try and drive on, and they have the opportunity to win an All-Ireland. It's something that is obviously going to hurt a lot of us in Limerick, like, but something that will be massive ammunition going forward to try and get back on the horse and drive on, you know.
What about Tip? Like, at the start of the championship season, a lot of people would have had Tip as the favourites for the All-Ireland. How do you think this game is going to go? Because
I don't know, it's a very hard one to call. Like, it's very diplomatic here as well, like, but
you definitely don't worry about diplomacy, it's overrated.
No, I suppose Tipperary, like, you see their forwards and their team and panel they have this year as well is unbelievable. Like, Seamus Callanan's on fire, and you know, when he's going well, Tipperary seems to be going well, and I suppose going to Kilkenny then as well, after playing them, we see what they're capable of and the kind of heights they've reached. So it's going to be a game that there's going to be nothing between, and I'd say it'll end up going down to the wires, and if I was going to call it, it'd be a draw, like.
No.
What was the biggest reason why you managed to give Tip a bit of a thumping in the Munster final?
I don't know, I wouldn't call it a thumping, no. Jeez, I suppose we just kind of had a bit of a look as well on the day. Like, you know, Tipperary, we played them the week before, blowing Thurles, and they beat us, and I suppose having to play them a week later, it was always a hard game to try and go into. But for us, we just focused on ourselves, and in the Gaelic grounds, we wanted to put on a massive performance for the home crowd, and look, thank God we got over the line and won that day. But as the year went on, Tipperary in an All-Ireland final, like, and we're not, and that's where you want to be at the end of the year. You want to be in Croke Park playing in front of 80,000 people, and I have massive envy towards Tipperary and Kilkenny, and you know, may the best team win too, you know.
Cian, I was talking to a couple of hurling people on Saturday night, and they were saying that they'd recently seen the Tip Kilkenny, it might have been the 4 in a row or the 5 in a row, one of those games, and just the complete difference in how the game is played from then to now, that it's far more of that all the teams now are playing possession, and they're playing like the whole notion of man on man seems to have disappeared. But I'm not sure, has it?
I think a lot of people look into it too much and try and analyse the whole thing and break it down into the smallest detail. Like, there's been tactics and there's been kind of different things going on in hurling since the beginning of it. Like, and I suppose evolution is huge, and when hurling evolves, so does the thought process, and so does the way the game has to be played. So it's like rugby and soccer and football at the moment. When players are getting faster and when the lads are getting bigger, the sport has to evolve, and I suppose hurling is probably one of the greatest games in the world at the moment to watch, and it's brilliant the way it's gone.
So at the minute, because we had Neil Donoghue in, and he was saying even you guys were a different challenge to what they'd seen in previous years, where the phrase he used was breaking the line, and that actually it felt like this was something that kind of hurling had learned a bit from football. If you have strong players who can take a tackle on him and break a tackle and then lay off the pass, you've taken 2 men out there, because there's your man and you're giving it to somebody else who's obviously taking it the right.
Yeah, but that's the way it's gone, as I said. Like, you know, a lot of it is instinct too. Like, you know, there's times where we can deliver the ball long.
Yeah, so tell me about that, will you? Tell me about the instinct versus what you're programmed to do.
We're all programmed to go out and play, and whatever obstacles put in front of you, play it as you see it. Like, you know, we all train hard and we all go through a different type of process.
And are you trained to take a tackle whenever you can, and to?
I suppose you're kind of trained to make the best option, like, you know. So if you see that if you break the tackle there and you get behind your man, there's space, you go with that. But if you see that there's a ball on inside, you'll give that in as well. So I suppose a lot of it isn't, you're not being drilled down to say you have to do that or you have to do this. I suppose if you're analysing games, there might be a kind of constant kind of act happening in the game that lads might be breaking the line, but it's just the way the game goes, and it all depends on the teams that are playing too, like the way the team's set up.
Do you feel that your hurling instinct has got better over the last couple of years, that you can almost coach your way into that situation?
I don't know about that either, no, but I suppose as you get kind of mature in the game too, you have to try and make more decisions, and the way hurling's gone, as I said, like, there's lads are getting bigger, quicker, faster, stronger, like, so you do have to evolve and make decisions on the spot, like, and kind of go with your best instinct too. Like, if the ball is on inside, give it in, but if you can carry it and draw a man, as you say, pop it out, then that's the best option. But I suppose, like everything, it changes, and change is good, I suppose.
Do you remember the goal that Wexford scored where some people were worried it was a square ball or not, against Tip?
Yeah.
That was one of the best goals. That was one of the best team goals I've seen.
Yeah, it was very good.
The skill level and the pace at which everything happened, and also the sense that, okay, I know there's going to be space up here if I keep running.
Yeah.
How off the training ground is that?
I suppose you work, like, in training, you try and do as much as you can as you'll be doing in the match, like, you try and replicate everything. So when you get out onto a pitch like Croke Park, if you can see in front of you that there's space, run into it, like, you know, if there's no space, deliver that ball or play it to the best man.
But what drills are you doing that, like, do you know what I mean?
Trying to give away everything here now. No, there's no real, like, I know people are trying to look into it and try and break it down and think that there is a massive mastermind behind the whole thing, but lads are training morning, noon, night, and they're trying to develop their hurling skills, and when you can carry a ball and see that your man is on your shoulder, and if he's in a better position, the way that extra goal was scored, play it across and to make the right decisions. But there's times where we don't make the right decisions and you might hit a bad ball that mightn't be the right option. And
so the coaches is about trying to make the right decisions as opposed to doing the same thing again and again.
Decision making is huge, sure. It's like everything in every sport, like the right decision can change a game or can for the better or the worse, you know.
Yeah. The other thing you talked there, lads are getting bigger, and we've kind of seen that. People look at the evolution of Conor Callaghan over the last couple of years, and some of your teammates as well.
Yeah.
What is that like? How much work is going into transforming bodies at this point? Like, is it 3-4 days a week in the gym? Is it a little bit of lifting every day? Is it?
There is, I suppose, for hurling and sport in general. The GA has kind of gone so full time now. Lads kind of have sacrificed everything. So you're getting up on a Monday morning there, you're finishing work at 5, and you're going straight to the gym for 5:30, and you're spending an hour and a half in there, and you're doing the gym twice a week, and you're probably training 3 times on top of that. So you're constantly going. If you're not doing aerobic or doing weights inside in the gym, I suppose looking at Conor Callaghan there, like the way he's developed over the last few years is massive, and his performances show as well as a result, like, you know.
Yeah, impossible to get off the ball. Yeah. So what have you been doing to bulk up?
Eating a few extra dinners, like you see the old Billy. I know. I suppose everyone tries to better themselves as an athlete, like, you know, if it's doing extra gym work or extra hurling drills, you try and do that. But I suppose gym is massive, as I said, the way it's gone.
So the strength is important to your game, especially in midfield, where
when I came in onto, I know I said it before, when I came in onto the Limerick team at 18, I think it was about 73 or 4 kg, like, and sure, if you were 74 or 73 kg now at 18, you're very light, like. But I kind of made a decision myself, and Joe Connor there is our strength and conditioning coach, kind of give us programs, and everyone's different, like, so I give me a program to just try and fill up a small bit, and I kind of filled up probably the wrong way now in the last 2 weeks, but try and go the same age, you know.
It's called wintering well. I thought it was
wintering well, yeah. Plenty of dinners, like.
An old tradition.
I know, but it's important too, like.
Do you enjoy it though, like, or is that part of it? Is it just a grind?
No, I actually do enjoy the gym, and I do enjoy training. Like, it's a great way to kind of clear the head and clear the mind, because lives are so busy these days, and there's so much pressures, I'd say, on the field, and there's so much pressures outside the field that you try and offload and you try and have your own space to clear your head, like.
Yeah, Kim, I hate to bring up Clare from the All-Ireland winning team, but that team won All-Ireland and then has largely broken up. There's still some of them that are there. Yeah. How do you guys make sure that you're a new version of the old Great Kilkenny team, or even the Tip team that come back and wins one another couple of years later, as opposed to a one-time All-Ireland winning team?
I suppose you just have to get your attitude right, and I suppose a lot of it goes back to the mentality and the mental side of things, like. But for us, it's about regrouping. Like, I know this year we didn't achieve the All-Ireland, but we still achieved a lot, and for ourselves, we're not satisfied with that. We want more, like, we want to come back and drive things on again. I suppose the winter now will be short with the club, and we'll be back at it again and back hurling again, and I suppose after the All-Ireland, I know we're still in the middle of the championship now at the moment, but next year will be a new year, and 2020 will open a new door, you know.
Yeah, and have you been to Barbados on the team holiday yet? Is that finished?
No.
Is that happening?
Yet. Yeah, it's in October there, like.
Right.
But it's a long way off now. As I said, we've club championship and work in the meantime, so.
Plenty to think. Nice thing in the horizon.
It's great now, in fairness. JP and Noreen have been very good to us in Limerick Hurling, like, so we appreciate it.
Yeah, it looks pretty sweet. Have you been looking at the brochures?
I have, yeah. In fairness, we're kind of mouth-watering stuff looking at it, but I suppose that's kind of side shows too, like. For us as players, we want to be able to achieve what we can achieve on the hurling field, and then enjoy that stuff aside from, I suppose this week's going to be hard for us as players to kind of watch the build-up for Kilkenny and Tip, and I suppose we'd kind of sacrifice everything to get back to an All-Ireland final again, you know.
Yeah, so I hope you can use the pain to your own ends. You've got a really good club team. Is there, like, you know, not to put pressure on it, the Limerick Championship is very difficult, but, like, everybody who's in it, who's at that level, must be thinking, if we could just get everything right this year, something could happen.
It is wide open, like, you know. You've the Pierce there, obviously, are massive favourites, like, and there's some great players, like, but Kilmallock doing it there, ourselves, South Liberty's, like, it's wide open. So I suppose just keep our heads down, and as I say, it's a total different thing to come back from your county, but it's a great way of getting back into routine and getting your confidence back up. And I suppose, as I said before, and I said again, like, your club is where you start and it's where you finish, so hopefully we can drive on.
Cian, enjoy the game this weekend if that's possible. Thanks very much for popping into us in the studio today. Cian was in with us this morning, with thanks to Centra's We Are Hurling campaign. You can use that hashtag We Are Hurling to see how Centra continue to champion the hurling community across Ireland. Check them out on Twitter and also on Instagram and Facebook. Phil Egan is in next. It's 13 minutes past 9 this morning. You're watching OTB AM. Here's Kevin Kilbane at Old Trafford yesterday afternoon.
David De Gea was the oldest Manchester United player on the pitch. He's only 28. It was a very young United team. They brought on Mason Greenwood, who's only 17, and Daniel James, one of their summer signings from Swansea, only 21, scoring in front of the Stretford end on your Manchester United debut. It's not bad.
Yeah, it was great for him, exactly, and he looked lively, didn't he? I think he immediately came on into the game and he went at Emerson, the Chelsea left back, wanted to go and beat him on the outside, won his team a corner, and he actually had another little spell in towards the end of the game where he got himself free of N'Golo Kante. Too good in on the ball and beating Kante, so he looked a threat when he came on. As you say, one or two others in United side. I was really impressed with Harry Maguire. You're making your debut. You're an £80 million defender, the most expensive defender in world football. The pressure that's on him, and I just thought he was just solid. He was cultured. He looked excellent. Did everything right in the game. It was a very impressive performance from him personally. Yeah,
that's good stuff there from Kev and Nathan. Phil Egan's with us this morning. How are you?
Good, yeah.
Our resident lifter.
Yeah.
3 times a week?
Not really,
like the Limerick Hurlers?
No, I don't. It's a lot of the stuff I do would be bodyweight stuff, like pull-ups and push-ups and...
Oh, right, so you don't even go to the gym?
No, I would still do it in the gym because it's just, I think if you...
Show off.
No, if you I've tried to do, I cancelled a gym membership before where I thought, I can do all this at home.
Yeah.
And because you're sitting on the couch going, I'll do it after the football. So you actually physically have to go to the gym just to put an hour aside.
Right, okay. Very good. How was your weekend?
Yeah, it was an interesting one in the house with a wife from Mayo. About 6:15. I think it was inevitable that Dublin were home and hosed.
And you rubbed it in all weekend?
No, definitely not. No, you could see the hurt. So it's no, it was one of those kind of I'll just take the dog for a walk after the game. Maybe it's best I just get out of the house kind of thing.
Do you feel sorry for Mayo?
You have to.
Owen, do you feel sorry for Mayo?
Not particularly, no.
Did you enjoy it? Those 12 minutes?
On Friday, you had a Mayo jersey on.
Because you wanted somebody to stop the Dubs?
Yeah, exactly. I definitely wouldn't have felt sorry for Dublin had they been beaten, put it that way. But I don't feel that sorry for Mayo. It's because they don't need any sympathy either. They're a good team. They're like an All-Ireland semi-final team. You feel sorry for Louth or someone getting absolutely thumped. And I know, to be fair, it was fairly comprehensive from Dublin in the end, but I think sympathy is a patronising sentiment.
And I don't mean it in a patronising way. I mean just, they give you so much. When they lost to Roscommon, I remember we were in here on the Monday after saying, is that the end? And
it was. It turned out that was the stupidest thing that Mayo have done in the last couple of years, not winning that game.
Not winning Connacht is the problem, because 7 games in 8 weeks, 8 and 9 weeks.
All their own fault.
And you could see that they ran out of gas in the second half. And if they had another week, if the scheduling was done properly where you played your 3 Super 8 games, maybe it might have been a tighter game. But
no,
you're shaking your head.
If Mayo win Connacht this year, it just would have been, they might have got to an All-Ireland final and then got battered at a certain stage by Dublin in that All-Ireland final. I think this was coming for a while. But
they didn't give themselves their best chance. That was the thing. I think if they'd gone through the front door, they're giving themselves their best chance. And at least a bunch of those injuries don't happen that did happen in those extra games.
Yeah. That's what they have to get back to doing, winning Connacht titles.
It'll be a new team, though. It won't be that team. It'll be a different... That team is dead now.
Yeah, it's you did feel you were kind of putting the curtain down on an era. And to be fair, when you're doing that, you're also kind of pulling the curtain back on this Dublin team, and you can never tell whether or not this is going to be the end for Mayo. But I think what we can tell is that perhaps the 5th year is actually going to be the most impressive year from Dublin in this 5 in a row.
In this 9 in a row, maybe.
Whatever it's going to be. It was absolutely terrible. Could you even widen this out to other sports in terms of what was a better sort of 10-15 minute patch? Like obviously the Germans against Brazil in 2014 kind of comes to mind in terms of a purple patch in the first half.
Awfully against Limerick in the All-Ireland hurling final.
Don't remember that one.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and
probably wasn't even born.
Just about. A couple of months on. I remember it well. Hazy memories though. I don't know. It was probably just being there. It was just astonishing actually being like, oh my God. Yeah, but like what can you even do?
Yeah, but so the first Con goal comes from the ball being dropped onto Cluxton's hands and he bats it down and it goes the length of the pitch. There's another couple of wides in that whole period.
Yeah.
Where
4 in a row I think for Mayo actually.
Yeah. So
Durkin and Lee Keegan.
So you watch it back and you're like, it's not like they're just killing them everywhere, although they are beating them in midfield and the half forward line in particular. That's where their dominance comes from. Mayo still had the opportunities to work things in, like
if that Keegan goal comes on the back of, say, 3 of those 4 opportunities being converted, then you're like game back on.
It's 4 points, 4 points, and okay.
The problem was the Keegan goal felt like a consolation immediately.
Yeah.
And it made no material difference in the outcome, so I agree with that.
Also, just a brief second to talk about the Keegan goal. One of the great goals you're ever going to see. An amazing finish.
It's like Aubameyang's goal yesterday.
The presence of mind to just drop it and go, I've overcarried this now. Okay, outside of my foot. I'm giving the greatest goalkeeper of all time the eye. It's going out. Cluxton, I don't think Cluxton moves.
No,
I think it just
bamboozled.
Yeah, it was sensational. Look, there's the picture of it. Outside of the foot. It's like, and it has, like all great goals, it has the possibility of going completely tits up to the point where he does that and it goes out for like a sideline.
I think.
Which means the risk.
Advantage being played there.
The risk is so high. I don't think there was. The commentator says, probably would have been a penalty anyway. I'm not sure.
I'm not sure if it was, I think maybe a free. Aidan O'Shea was running through, so I don't know if. But
beautiful bit of
unbelievable finish. I think
set him up.
The moment, I don't know what it was like for you in the stadium, but when Paul Mannion kicks that one from out on the sideline, you kind of thought, wow, that's kind of.
Mannion's unbelievable to watch.
Yeah.
Like Mannion is worth paying into the final alone to watch. It's worth paying in on Saturday night to watch alone. The ball striking.
His improvement, because he's Kilmacud, he's my club, and when I saw him first playing, this is a soccer player who has brilliant feet, but his handling wasn't great and he wasn't that strong, and if you played ball into him, he didn't always get it. Once he got the ball into his hand, then he could do the damage with his shooting, but even simple things like soloing the ball, he was a bit untidy. Now he's the complete package, and his shoot, like some of his point taking was unbelievable.
Yeah. Footballer of the Year is an interesting conversation at the moment.
Very interesting.
Con's odds on are very close to it, but actually
it's Con versus Clifford, I think, and whoever wins the All Ireland gets the gong.
Brian Fenton,
Mannion.
I think Con is favourite for me when it comes to the Dublin setup.
But I think
McCaffrey would have been for me before Saturday, and granted, I did say at the start that I thought Scully was actually man of the match rather than Conor Callaghan, which is probably a bit of a left field choice, but I did think Con's contribution was absolutely ridiculous, and all season long I just think that to this point he's been so scintillating to an extent that Brian Fenton just hasn't needed to be. He's not a forward. We take Fenton for granted so much in some of these earlier games.
Yeah, there's a bit of that, and he's getting punished for the fact that Dublin don't play enough important games. Like, that's the problem when you're trying to make that selection. But I don't know, I think Mannion has had a level of performance that is as good as anybody in the country at the moment.
Yeah, well, the scramble for tickets anyway is going to start 1st of September. Dublin and Kerry, obviously Dublin blitz Mayo in the second half to continue their bid for 5 in a row. That was on Saturday. Then yesterday Kerry joined them in the final with a strong second half performance that saw them beat Tyrone by 118 to 18 points. Stephen O'Brien with the goal for Kerry in the second half, but the man of the match also picked up a black card in injury time for pulling down Conor McCalliskey, his 3rd of the season. That rules him out of the final, but Kerry will appeal the suspension and the black card that he received against Meath last week. The Kerry Miners, though, won't be in action on the 1st of September. Galway ended Kerry's bid for 6 minor titles in a row with a 14 points to 13 win in the curtain raiser at Croke Park yesterday. So you've got Galway and Cork in that minor final. Manchester United hammered Chelsea 4-0 at Old Trafford to make a winning start to the Premier League season. Marcus Rashford with 2. Anthony Martial and substitute Daniel James were also on target, but United manager Ole Gunnar Solskjaer says he's not getting too carried away.
but it's still work in progress. We still know that we're not anywhere near the finished article. I think we've got loads of improvement to be made.
Mentioned Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang and how his goal for Arsenal yesterday was similar enough to Lee Keegan's goal on Saturday, but that goal was good enough for Arsenal to win 1-0 away to Newcastle. Finished 0-0 between Leicester and Wolves at the King Power Stadium. 4 first-round ties yesterday in the FAI Cup. Waterford, Galway, UCD and Lucan United all won. Rangers have kept pace with champion Celtic in the Scottish Premiership. Jermaine Defoe scored a hat-trick as Stephen Gerrard's side won 6-1 at home. The 10-man Hibs. Natalia Coyle will be at the Tokyo Olympics next year. She finished 8th in the modern pentathlon at the European Championships and qualified for Tokyo. Ireland beat Great Britain 60-57 to secure a bronze medal at the Women's Under-20 European Basketball Division B Championship in Kosovo. But that win also means Ireland are promoted to Division A. And Patrick Reed won the Northern Trust in New Jersey, finished up on 15 under par. Rory McIlroy was 3 back on 12 under. That was good enough for a share of 6th place. Open champion Shane Lowry ended up on 3 under par.
All right. The other thing was Con's first goal. When you're at the ground, you're like, why did Lee Keegan slip? Was there a push? And then there's one great replay kind of from the side where you see that Con just makes a run out, stops, Keegan slips, and then suddenly he's in that space. It was like a dead stop. The type, again, the footwork that Brian Howard has. So whatever drills they're doing for their footwork stuff is like high end.
Because on the TV, initially I thought, he must have pushed him.
Yeah.
You just couldn't get that clear replay for a few minutes. I just thought Keegan must have been pushed. But James Horan referenced it in his post-match as well, that Lee Keegan slipped.
Yeah, but Keegan slips because of the movement of, it's not like you're one of the great athletes in Ireland over the last decade didn't just slip. It was the movement from Con that did that.
You'd wonder how you even mark him, to be honest with you, or what sort of system you can actually put in place to do it. You've just got to absorb the whatever 3-16 they're going to score, or whatever it may be.
I think you need somebody who plays in the full back line. I think that helps. Because I think that Keegan's uncomfortable in there, right? I think that Dublin knew that from putting Kieran Kilkenny on him. Kilkenny would do okay in the full forward line when he's been man-marked by Keegan. And it also nullifies Keegan's free running ability that leads to the goal. So I don't think they did get that matchup right, to be honest.
No, it was definitely eyebrow raising as soon as we saw it happen, to be honest. We didn't think that was going to be the matchup. So obviously at half time you were saying to yourself, well, everything Mayo have done so far has worked to perfection, and you just kind of boxed the Lee Keegan move in under that. But as it turned out in the second half, actually, it was the incorrect thing to do.
Yeah, okay. Phil, what did you make of the start of the Premier League season? It's like kind of immediate rekindling of last season's title race straight away, is it?
Yeah, I think though I was more impressed with City. I think I felt even before the start of the season, City had the team to beat. I don't think there'll be a point in it this season. I think it'd be a lot more straightforward. I don't think that's anything to do with Liverpool not having a good season. I just think City will be just too good. You'd be slightly concerned now. We don't really know the full extent of Alisson's injury. We were kind of told 4 to 8 weeks, but then there is a few reports going around that maybe he did some damage to his Achilles as well. Adrian is decent, but he's not Alisson.
No.
Like Alisson was brilliant in the Champions League final when they needed him. Even the second leg against Barcelona, he made what might look like routine saves, but he made them. Like even the goal that Pukki scored the other night for Norwich, I don't know, I think Alisson might have saved it. I thought Adrian was quite slow and getting down to it. It wasn't the most convincing dive, but he's decent enough with his feet. I kind of, last season I wondered who was going to be who would be the most important player for Liverpool. Would it be Van Dijk or Alisson? Now it turned out it was Van Dijk. So with Van Dijk still there, you can get away with second choice keeper, but it's hard to have a really good second choice keeper. United have the best in Romero, but I can remember when Darren Randolph was playing for West Ham, he was in ahead of Adrian. There was a spell where Bilic picked Adrian, and then Randolph played a few games, and because Adrian got suspended and he kept his place, but then Adrian got it back. David Moyes went with Joe Hart. That didn't go well, so then he brought Adrian back in and their form improved. But he's okay, but certainly
It's a big blow.
It's a big blow. If you're opposition managers now, you're thinking, right, their keeper ain't as good as the previous keeper. So
Caoimhín Kelleher's going to be on a lot of benches, is he?
Yeah, he's coming back. He's back training. He had a wrist injury. Really unfortunate. We've talked about him before, how if he didn't get the injury, he would have seen a lot of game time in the pre-season, because Alisson was obviously playing in the Copa America. They signed Lonergan. Looks like they're going to have to sign him on an emergency loan, because I don't think, like, Kelleher's not ready. If you've got a wrist injury, probably not ideal to be thrown in on Wednesday night for the Super Cup against Chelsea. But yeah, it's a slight concern. The other concern for Liverpool on Friday night was maybe Trent Alexander-Arnold getting caught out the odd time. That's what you're going to get with him. He's a young defender. You saw the goal that he set up for Origi. That's what he brings. You should probably focus more on that. But I think City are the team to beat. United,
I think West Ham probably need to look at themselves. These teams capitulating straight away to Man City and just getting hammered. Like, come on, do something. Get involved in the game. Have a tactic.
West Ham aren't good enough at the back.
They definitely aren't. All right, we want you to have a look at this. Later on this week, we're going to have a special feature with Brian O'Driscoll and Dennis Hickey looking back on the 2003 Rugby World Cup. It's all with thanks to Vodafone. #TeamOfUs. #everyone in.
He had the song Fernando used to always sing, so we all end up in a rendition of Fernando, which I'm sure the Argentinians probably thought we were taking the piss out of them, which we weren't. But we insisted on Don singing the song, and we all got. It was just one of those. It was a mix between relief, euphoria, and realising that we still had to play another match.
Loads of great stuff from that coming your way later on this week. That's all from us though this morning on OTB AM. Plenty more live coming your way tomorrow morning live from 7:30. Off the Ball is back from 7 tonight on News Talk, but in the meantime there's loads more for you on OTB Sports Radio. Centaur, the story of Declan Murphy, the memoir of the jockey who came back from the dead. It's an amazing interview. That one is coming your way at 1 o'clock. A repeat of the Sunday pay-per-view, which is obviously heavily focused on the dubs, is coming your way at 2. The best of Mario Rosenstock on Off the Ball is coming your way at 4. Donncha Ryan is on at 5, and Joe meets Sherlock Nan is there for you today at 6. And the best place to get that is on the Go Loud app, where you can tell Alexa to play OTB Sports Radio, and lo and behold, she will if you tell her it's on TuneIn. We'll see you tomorrow. Good luck.
Is OTB Sports Radio.
With over 15,000 coolers available to